Parashar, I was reading not too long ago that people, when you have a bifurcated meeting and people are at home and zooming in and people are in the office, rather than having an office picture, people who are in the office are supposed to zoom in using their laptop so that everyone can be seen by everyone, because
I understand exactly what you're saying.
yeah,
Because they can see the table, they can't really see who we are.
right.
And what you're talking about is sort of a double hybrid or semi-hybrid or something. And I know actually Ray will have his computer and earphones because he can't hear as well in the meeting. Yeah.
So are you suggesting though that I should turn my
I'm not
video
thinking,
on?
oh, no, absolutely. I
Oh.
think that we should bring our laptops. and
I only
do
bring
that.
mine because this way I can actually see. I can't quite see stuff.
It's a full Zoom meeting is easier than a hybrid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is.
Yeah.
Think of that for poor teachers,
I-
you know?
Okay, it is 7 o'clock on July 28th. This is the Concord Finance Committee meeting. I think we do have a quorum. I will call the meeting to order. And I would like to get a volunteer scribe from someone who's remote. That's your punishment for not coming in. And it's a lot easier, I think, to scribe at your own desk with your own computer. So who online would like to volunteer to be the scribe today? Okay, I'm going to call on someone.
Am I the only one who's online? I can't see any.
No, but you're the only one that has said anything.
That was a mistake.
Thank you, Don.
I can do it, but I can't do it this minute because I'm not in one place yet, which is why I'm not there. But in about 5 minutes, I could start scribing.
Okay, that's fine. Amrit did it. He's online. He did it last week, last meeting. Suresh, we've got Brian. So Don, I'm going to ask you to do it when you settle in.
Very good.
That'd be
Donna,
great.
I'll record the attendance for you and email it to you, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, do we have any meeting minutes to approve?
We should.
I think we have to do the
need to
order.
roll
You gotta-
call.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because we're
Okay.
hybrid, yeah.
Yeah.
Roll call attendance. Ray told me he does plan to attend, but he's going to be here about 15 minutes late in person.
Okay.
So we'll identify that. Suresh?
I thought I saw him.
He's on there.
Suresh, you are present?
You're muted.
You're muted, yeah.
Okay, we're going to identify Suresh as present. Peggy Briggs, present. Kathy Koklow? Don't see her. Eric Dahlberg? Nope. John Garofalo? He's one of our new members, so I don't see him yet, but hopefully he'll join us. Greg said he was going to be about 15 minutes late. Amrith?
I'm here.
Present. Dawn, present.
Present, yeah.
Lindsay is also, she's one of our new members. She was here in person last week. She will be remote this week and hopefully will be joining us momentarily. Dee,
Present.
Parashar,
Present.
Chris,
Present?
Brian,
Here.
and Lois.
Here.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 as of this moment, and several more expected. We also have present today Bob Lillisher, our finance director, and Carrie is here in the townhouse, so she is present as well. And also here today, very kindly is our Selectman Chair, Matt Johnson. So, okay. Any meeting minutes? I didn't see any.
No.
No,
Nope.
okay. Check on that
Peggy,
one.
I sent you one. You wanted more details.
I
We've
did.
traditionally, we've traditionally not done more details on meeting minutes, so I'm waiting for you to tell me what you want to do.
Okay,
I'll get back to you, Amrith.
Please.
Peggy, talk to Peggy and get back to you. I
Okay,
haven't
thank
had,
you.
that'd be great.
yeah, I want to watch the
Something the
meeting
matter?
since I missed it.
Okay,
Okay, so.
okay. New member introductions. Well, they're not here. I was just gonna have each of both John and Lindsay introduce themselves, but we'll hold off on that until they get here. Calendar updates, town meeting. So we do have in our packet our draft meeting schedule. And Matt, do you have this in front of you, or do you want to come? You want to come right? It's in the paper packet.
I noticed that the finance, the capital forms were not included.
You want to put it up for everybody else?
Sure.
Bob, can you share the?
We came up with the dates for the first two, so
How many are we having?
there's 3 meetings. One's a finance meeting, and then there's one that's the schools and select board, and then there's the sort of final.
That's the capital planning forum.
Right.
Yeah. So the first one is 9/26,
Yep.
and the last one's 12/12, and yours is in between those.
Yeah, so we just need one.
You just
And
need
I
something in
was-
November.
I was shooting for the 10th, which is not a Thursday, and I asked Chris, before I realized he was on vacation, to
Oh,
pull
Chris
the
Carmody.
board
Yeah.
on a date,
Oh,
if that date was good.
what
So-
date is it? November 10th?
September 10th, does that, no,
No,
November,
November.
October 10th.
November.
November you need.
Well, it could be October.
It is,
It could be October,
let me
but
just see, I jotted it down in
What
my
is this
own
meeting for?
calendar. No, it was you're right,
It's the
November
capital
10th,
planning
November
forum.
October
10th.
10th.
Started last year.
Thurs-
Finance.
Capital
Thurs-
Planning Forum?
Thursday, November 10th. Maybe we'll just start with whether or not that works for everybody in attendance, which is the majority. So if it works, that is a Thursday. It's 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. I am not sure what we do about a regular meeting is the following week, the 17th. But
Okay with me.
it seemed to me that, we're kind of in a Thursday rotation, and that seems to be the easiest day to do it. And that's a capital planning forum. It'll be the middle one of one with the town, one with the schools, and one with us. Is that correct, Matt?
That's it. Yeah.
It'll be standard time, 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Would it be possible for Chris or someone else to just send out meeting notices to all the FinCom members for all of these meetings?
Yes. You mean like
Like a
calendar
formal
invites?
calendar invite,
Yeah,
because frankly,
yeah.
that's the best way, in my opinion. Just
Okay.
keep all of us on track,
That's a great idea.
and people accept or decline, you'll have a pretty good sense of who's shown up.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, so Matt, why don't we, looks like no one's having an allergic reaction to November
Okay.
10th, so
Good.
we're going for that. And we'll get as many people as we can. And then special town meetings, we have just the one?
Yeah, there's not going to be one for the Public Works.
No, okay,
No, the state did not extend the deadline, so there was no way to vote on any, package because
okay,
we couldn't submit the package. So we will have to reapply next year. So,
Okay, so the special town meeting is for the middle school.
No.
well,
That's
Are
just
we
a
not
ballot
having
vote.
one?
so at the present, there's no special town meeting at present. I don't know if you want to go there, but I could describe what might occur
Well, we
relative
had a
to.
pretty long discussion about that last week, right?
Yeah, but since then, I've
Okay.
talked with the town moderator and the town manager and about what would be feasible dates.
Okay,
And, because first of all, the committee has voted to wait until the 60% design estimate comes in. So that kind of starts the clock ticking. If there's a need for a special town meeting at that point, it basically, the estimate comes back the 13th of October,
Mhm.
then, the warrant would need to be opened after that. And then, you go through all the process, the hearing, the report, all of that stuff, right?
yep.
And they don't come back reconciled until like 2 weeks later either.
Halloween, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
the-
so
The estimates
I
come in,
I
but they
was
don't.
just going to try to join the Zoom here. So I have a spreadsheet that just shows a pro forma set of those dates.
Okay,
Again, if it were to occur, there'd be sort of like a go, no go decision and
Right,
then
right,
open the warrant and all that stuff. So
right.
I'll see if I can join this. But you don't have to wait for me in the meantime. We'll
Yeah.
get this.
So the August meeting, Peggy, do you want an August meeting? So that typically is the training meeting, but if you want an August meeting, you can have one. It's a question of what do you want to
Right,
do?
that's August 28th, if I'm not mistaken, and I will
20,
not,
25,
25.
right.
Okay, let's, want is an interesting choice of words.
Okay.
Need,
So the host has disabled sharing, so
you can't do
I
it.
can't share.
Okay.
Oh, hold it.
I'd
Now I
like to
can.
wait.
Now I
Okay,
can.
all right, you've been enabled.
I think partly depends on how much
Magically, it
progress we
has
make on the
been
SGR.
enabled.
So
There we go.
wait.
Okay, so
Let's, okay, here we are.
okay, so as I was saying, so the 60% estimate, I think is scheduled to be received on the 13th of October. And prior to that date, the committee will have done some value engineering. We'll have a sense of like, okay, well, now if the estimate comes in this much, we're over budget versus this. So, and I think there's a sense that, at a certain threshold, they would want to call a special town meeting to understand whether the town wants to spend more money on the project. So then we have a select board meeting on the 17th of October. That would be a convenient time to open the warrant. Then we proposed that the middle school building committee then meet on the 20th to propose any article that we should submit. On the 24th, the select board would vote on the amount, ideally, maybe with some
Okay.
input from the finance committee. Then the warrant would close as scheduled on the 27th, 10 days after the opening. The warrant would then be posted, to town addresses.
Our, just to pause, our normal meeting would be the 27th. So I think we would have to have an additional meeting
Yeesh, yeah.
either on the 13th or the 20th, or somewhere in that time frame. If
Well, the 20th would be ideal because the 20th would be in the morning. The middle school building committee would have met and potentially would have come up with their draft article. So you'd have it to look at.
okay,
I mean, it's not going to be, 10 pages. It's going to be one paragraph.
X
right?
million or any other amount.
Yeah.
Who's voting on the amount there? Is that the select board voting?
That's what we did last time.
I'm just asking, so it's a select board voting?
That's what we did last time. I assume that's what we do this
Yeah,
time.
okay.
So then the next thing
Let's
is,
see what we think of this.
the next thing would be the public hearing.
Mhm.
And so the public hearing would be a finance committee, and
Do we
notice
have
we're
time? Are we good?
hijacking,
Okay.
we're hijacking one of your meetings
Yes.
for this. So that's a question mark. And then you have 3 weeks to
That's-
generate your report.
That's not a problem. It's
Okay.
very common for us to start at 5:30 or 6, have our meeting, and then roll into the hearing.
Okay, great.
mean,
And
that
it's
would-
only a one, well, we don't know, but it could be just a one-item hearing.
That's right.
Once the warrant opens, it's open season. We might have to
Right.
have a select board hearing. We might, who knows, depending on if anything else
Yeah.
gets thrown in there.
Yeah.
Then the Finance Committee report gets mailed out, on December 8th. And then 7 days later is when we'd have the special town meeting. And that's kind of tight, but any later is getting late in December.
Yeah, that's tight, but
Yeah. Then if we do a townwide vote, so basically there is a process where if it's just a little over, then you can appeal to the state and they would just, you don't have to have a townwide election. However, I think that there is a
Yeah.
sense in the town that, any amount that's significant, we should have the voters weigh in.
yes.
But now we have a new bylaw.
Hey,
saying-
I'm in the middle of something. I'll come down later.
I think, please put yourself on mute if you're.
In the middle of something.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a new bylaw now that in the past, we could just hold the election right after special town meeting. Now, we have to actually print out and send pro-con statements on any issue that's up for the voters. And so those can't really be composed until we know what the voters voted on. So
At town meeting.
yes. So that would mean that any townwide vote, if required, would be 10th of January approximately. And that's a Tuesday. I just stuck a Tuesday in. I mean, you could do January 3rd, but that would be both tight in time and
Really close
not
to
a
the
great,
holidays.
yeah, not a great day. So anyway, that gives you a general sense of the timeframes that would be involved if such a thing came to pass. Again, it's not a foregone conclusion, but and by the way, the town clerk's office has not vetted these specific dates. I have reviewed them with the moderator. I've reviewed them with the town manager. They, as far as they're concerned, they look feasible, but they would need, and the town clerk's office people are gone this week.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so
And
the
and I
one,
think, Peggy, we need to overlay it with our work in the fall. We need to look at it too versus the guidelines meetings in October. We just need to look at it.
no, this is,
Yeah,
fall
it's a pro
is our
forma, but it's a
busy.
good, it's a good,
Good thing.
it's a good thing.
Can we leave that up for a minute?
oh, sure.
The other thing I'd like to compare it to a little bit is, so this is, we are,
Where'd it go?
this is all based on the estimate that we're gonna get.
The 60% estimate. And
60% estimate, and then after that, what this says, this is the middle school schedule. Town process, November 17th to February 2nd. And they had a special town meeting on January 20th. But then we have design, development, construction, and whatnot. So we're carrying the ball on the 60% estimate.
well, that's
Question
the
is,
basis upon
do we
which.
have to do it again?
Well, there is a risk, right? So the 90% estimate, one of the co-chairs pointed out today, is going to arrive on January 10th, the day of the election. So that's the 90%, and that's the 90% is the one, I think that's the basis of the bid.
It is.
So Matt,
So-
can I just,
Yeah.
last week, they said October 25th would be when the reconciliation occurs between the two estimates. So I guess I'm curious,
So this may be
this
too
is
early.
too early
Right.
by almost
2
2 weeks.
Yeah.
So we got to push everything, just FYI.
Yeah, it's true. It could be. I mean, it's funny. I mean, I've just presented this at the end of the meeting this morning. No one pushed back, but people really haven't had a chance to adjust it. We will be having another meeting next Thursday. So I assume there's chance for people to figure this all out. But that's a good point.
So if we just push back the end dates, we're
Well,
talking about basically a special town meeting it doesn't have to be exactly 21 days, right? It could still be
Well,
roughly
actually,
the 15th or 20th.
the
or something.
21 days for you to write your report is up to you.
I don't know that we'll need 21 days, but
Okay, well.
okay.
Be a really short report.
Oh,
So let's just,
Depends on
I
who's
can
writing
just see it.
it.
It
Well,
either
I'm
says,
just writing
let's
it.
do it, or no way. It's just a
yes,
one
no.
sentence.
Yes, no.
so let's just work back from the annual town meeting, which is April 30th. Our finance committee report is April 5th to the printer. All the public hearings are in March. So if this all gets pushed up by, let's say, 2 weeks, or pushed out by 2 weeks, now we're voting at the end of January. The warrant, the town, regular town, this is gonna be very confusing for voters. Because the regular town warrant is gonna be voted, I'm sorry, closes on January 4th and will be mailed on February 13th.
Well, this will all be over, but the shouting by then,
Yeah.
presumably.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, it is our busy time of year, but obviously if there's another town meeting, we'll have to deal with it.
Does this
Won't be the
finance,
first time.
We
does
did it
this
last
finance
time.
committee report also have to be printed and sent out to everybody?
Yep.
That's
We
the
have
thing.
to add it, that's the 21 days or whatever for publication, for printing. I will,
Well, we've got the 7 days from the time that you issued the report. Yeah, it has
no, I know,
to, it's
but
printed.
that's right.
It's
So
printed
between
by
the
then.
17th and the 8th,
Yeah,
more of it's probably,
That's
which is
the
printing
printing and whatnot.
versus the
Yeah.
writing, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, again, if you do it as a one sentence report, you could probably go down to Alpha Graphics and have it this afternoon.
Just have a town crier going up and down the streets.
So do we, just a question, quick question, do we have to have this before the 90% estimate? Do we have to have all of this discussion?
Sorry, we can't hear what you're saying.
Yeah, Dee, you have to.
So,
Do we have
Especially
to
with the mask
have,
on.
do we have to have this strategy in place before the second bid, the 90% bid?
I believe what I heard last week is that they cannot put this out to bid unless the town has authorized the full sum of the, what they hope they're gonna get for bids. So by 90%, they should have a really good feeling for what the bids are gonna come in at. And they can't issue the bid request without that number having already been authorized by the town. So clearly what you're describing, Matt, assumes that the 60% estimate is gonna hold.
That they
well,
have-
and there's
Well,
also a bid contingency of $2 million,
Well,
right?
it's already there, bid
For bidding in April,
Well-
right, but
Plenty of
just,
contingencies, but-
but the 60% stage, I believe, that's the last time they want to touch the design, and so that's the
That's
point.
it.
So that's the
it.
issue.
That's where all the wiggle
That's
room
where-
goes away.
Right, so after 60%, we're done, we're locked in order to keep the thing on schedule.
So, but technically, we can wait till 90%. The challenge is they want to get the bid out by the end of February. So if we wait till December and you look at the schedule, you'd have to then shift
Yeah.
the schedule
Yeah.
for bid and everything else. So if we want to do that, we can wait 90%, but to the point everybody else is
I don't think
making.
I don't think,
I'm just saying hypothetically. you
no,
can
I
wait, that's
don't
all.
even think they
And-
would say
and some of the-
hypothetically
and
that's.
Oh,
correct.
really?
What I've
Yeah,
gotten is
hypothetically.
that the escalation of a delay overwhelms any value engineering incrementally.
Okay.
Bob. Amrith,
Yeah, I had two questions. One, to Parashar's point and to Matt's point, these dates between the various milestones, some of them have to be calendar days, other have to be business days. Do we know which ones are calendar days and which ones are business days? And because the reason I asked the question is because we're heading into the holiday season.
Yeah. No, and that's one of the reasons we're going to get this vetted, right? So as far as we know, again, with the moderator having looked at it, so far we're following those rules.
Okay, And the other one is, does Concord have a requirement that we need to mail the warrant and the FinCom report out, or can we do it online?
No, I think we have to mail them physically.
Thank you.
That would be a good thing for the select board to pick up.
I think it's a state requirement.
I bet it's
Yeah.
state.
Yeah.
What is a state requirement?
I think the requirement that go
Physical
out in
mailing.
print is.
No, it is not a state requirement. Sterling never used to mail out physical warrants. I was the moderator in Sterling for 6 years.
Hmm.
All right, then that's something we should talk
Well,
about.
it's certainly,
It's probably precedent. in
Concord
Concord.
bylaw, I believe.
It may be a Concord bylaw. It's something which is statutorily required within Concord, but it is not a state requirement. That much I can tell you.
Is it worth discussing? I mean, maybe changing the bylaw, just given it's 2022. And
I'm sorry, who's speaking right now?
Brian Taylor.
Brian, thank you, Brian.
so sorry about that. I was just asking, does it make, I mean, this is the finance committee. I'm not trying to change policy here to Matt, but you know, a QR code on a postcard is a lot more efficient than 21 days to print. So I'm just curious to know if there's a.
I will follow up on that. I think it's certainly worth checking in on the cost savings and the time savings. And it is 2022. Yeah. Yep.
That's right. I was just gonna say, it could go, okay, I was thinking, Bob, the exact same thing. You could put that article right on the town warrant, that same.
Okay.
Okay,
Now, should I turn?
Tammy
stop-
Gubera?
Pardon me? What's that?
Oh.
No, she's an idiot.
Louis.
Who's the idiot?
Can you please put yourself on?
He just did.
He just did. A little too late, but he did. This is going to be a good meeting to write the minutes for. Can I volunteer now?
Great, John, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion on calendars? I mean, this will be evolving. If I were a gambling person, which I'm not, I would bet that we're going to have a special town meeting this fall, which means we will have some extra meetings and extra work to do, but to the extent that we can dovetail those meetings with our regular meetings and keep the report short, you know, I think that obviously the key discussions that we'll be interested in, you know, will be the cost, any alternatives, financing alternatives, and any value engineering or changes to the design that can come forward, which we all talked about last week, not this week. It's not Matt's area. Okay.
Quick question. While you're here, do you want to talk about meeting in September? It's not immediate, but you only have one more meeting in between.
Sorry, can't hear you.
While you're all here, I didn't know if you wanted to set a September meeting date or dates.
Don't we have a regular meeting in September?
No, it's not on the calendar.
Pardon?
It's not on this
marked
memo
here.
here. It's not marked.
Oh, it should be on,
2 dates because of
on,
the special town meeting, which are gone.
it should be on September 22nd.
So do you want to do
Yeah,
that? And September 26th is the first capital planning forum.
No,
Well,
we don't.
That's not our meeting.
No, we don't go to
That
that.
meeting
Right.
is between the select board and the school committee.
Yeah.
We're,
Okay.
of course, welcome to attend, I'm sure, but that's not our meeting. Ours will be the 10th.
So,
This will be the September 22nd? Is that
Yes,
our
it's.
meeting?
That's our
it's the
regular
fourth-
meeting
That's the
now.
fourth Thursday of the month.
Okay.
Okay, good. And you're going to keep the August meeting?
Right now, yes, I'm
Decide
going to
the
keep
end
it,
of
and
Okay,
we'll
good.
see. I just think there's an awful lot going on. We may pre-advertise it as 100% remote if people are out of town, but
Well, that's a good idea.
yeah,
And Parashar, you have dates now for guidelines meetings? Where do those,
I don't.
oh, you don't? Okay. I thought they were in the memo, no?
Those are dates from last year.
Oh, okay.
And then I think today we got to discuss some of
Okay,
those.
okay.
So maybe we
Sorry.
wait until we get there.
Yep.
Okay,
I
so-
hadn't even thought about it.
So you guys will figure out the guidelines, additional meetings?
Dates?
Yeah.
Well, between Bob and I, we could figure,
Yeah.
and once we get, that's why having the schedule done
Yeah.
today, I think is helpful, then we can plug in the dates. Bob and I could take that offline.
I would urge the members of Finance Committee to reserve almost every Thursday from now until regular town meeting.
I think that's,
And
why not?
we'll try to keep them on Thursdays for simplicity. Okay. Let's see, I think. John, John, are you up there? John Garofalo? Oh, I thought I saw his name up there. Okay. So that's calendar update and the next steps, whoever's taking the minutes, Don, just make sure that for calendar update that the action item is to finalize this calendar, add September 22nd, and get from Parashar the Guideline Committee meeting dates. And we decided that the entire committee, the entire Finance Committee is the Guideline Committee.
Yeah,
Okay,
yep.
okay, good enough. All right, we need to finalize, there were a few committee liaisons. Anything else on calendar?
John is trying to say something.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Peggy. What dates did you say to add? Was it September 22nd?
Yes,
Thank you.
for a regular meeting.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda is just to finalize a few committee liaisons. Let's see. On the schools, we, Lindsay, and Amherst, and Eric all have volunteered to be backup to Kathy.
We discussed this the last time, I thought. Eric said he would do it.
Okay. Good enough.
The reason I say it is because the sheet seems to be out of date because we talked about the check with Amrit on rec committee and I'd already said yes.
Yeah, I think you're right. Okay. And could, Don, on the minutes, could you identify that Ray has just arrived at 7:30?
Okay, very good, thanks.
Thank you. Let's see, the retirement board. We don't have a liaison to that. That one is more, would be someone more with a financial planning, kind of background. You know what, I think I'm gonna jot down John on that one. Because he's not here.
That'll teach him.
We know how that works, okay?
Yeah.
The broadband has been disbanded. Recreation, Amherst, you were on that last year?
Yes, I was. I'll stay there if it's okay with you.
Okay, that's awesome. Amherst, Senior Services Council on Aging. Is that one that we need to cover, do you think, Chris?
It depends on what's on their agenda. We didn't cover it last year because they didn't have a lot going on.
Okay,
I don't know this year if there's a reason to
well,
cover
why
it.
don't we leave it off until we see the regular town warrant? If there's something on there, we can jump in.
Yep,
Okay. And same with the Board of Health
yeah, it was the same thing.
and the Regional Dispatch Center.
We had Mary on that last year.
Yeah, we discussed putting myself, Greg, on that one.
Okay. Thank you, Greg.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. All right. Guideline information letters. We have a sample here from last year. Nope, this one's been updated.
I think just the dates,
It's
I
dated
think
today.
just the date is updated. Bob or Carrie, do you
And it
guys?
addresses me. It wouldn't otherwise.
And
Yeah,
it's
so
got,
I think
and it's got Bob on it.
Got Bob
What's
Conroy.
in yellow you need to fill in.
We need to fill in, okay. Well, actually, what I want to do is not presume that the committee wants the same information as last year, maybe.
Okay.
So maybe should we talk a little bit about what we did last year? I know there's a bunch of new members, several new members.
That'd be great.
So I think for those of us that were here last year, what we did was in essence request 3 to 5 top strategic priorities for the schools, the towns, both school budget units and the town, as well as the Minuteman. Rather than, I think what our practice has been is just sort of dive into the detail. And so last year, I think we elevated and said, hey, just stick to the top level, 3 to 5 strategic issues and how they tie in to your budget request. That was one point. And the second point was, oh, by the way, just don't give us your sense of what you're asking for the next fiscal year, but give us 5-year cost projections with the understanding that nobody's holding you to the fact that, 3 years from now, you might be off by a little bit. But again, tying it into how your strategic priorities affect not only the budget for next year, but out in the out years as well. Feedback I've gotten from Carrie and Lori was that they liked that process. It allowed them to talk about big picture issues. I got some of that feedback from the current finance committee members, the ones that were through it last year. So I'm proposing if it worked last year for folks, we just continue it in the future, but open to modifying, changing, tweaking, or doing something new.
Comment, I thought that having that introduction by each of the organizations was really very positive in understanding what their issues are, how they are thinking of addressing those issues. And I just felt it was a really good grounding in understanding, as much as we can understand in a short amount of time, the issues that are facing both the town and the schools. I really appreciated the change.
Good. Anybody else have any other input or comments or thoughts? And I know we've got members of the school committee on. I'd be interested in getting their input also if they want to provide it. Wow, going once.
Should we attach to this letter the capital plan, 5-year capital plan as we understand it?
From last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Listen,
A reminder?
exactly.
Yeah.
That's
that's
why we
fine.
have a 5-year capital plan, right?
Yep.
So if there are any changes, they get highlighted.
Okay. That's fine. It's good.
Okay.
Bob, can you make that note? Or I could borrow your pen.
We could just say, up on item number 3, 4, yeah, capital program, we could just say, please see
Please see
attached
attached, yeah, that's fine.
from last year.
Okay. Any other input? Oh, Cynthia's got her hands raised. Cynthia?
So, Parashar, I would just ask that you address one of the chair of the Concord School Committee and the chair of the Regional School Committee as a CC.
It's one.
Yeah,
letter.
we'll do that.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
I know they'll get it, but just procedurally, I think it's nice. Thanks.
Do we have anything in there about ARPA?
We don't have anything specifically
Anything
about ARPA.
specific about ARPA? That's, I'm just trying to think if there's something that, big that's changed.
Well,
So,
hopefully Carrie and the select board will identify that, and if they don't, we can ask them.
okay.
I don't know how big of a strategic priority it ends up being.
No, it just affects the budget, so that's all. I'm not worried about that, the strategic priority piece.
And some of these should be pretty similar, like OPEB and. Here.
Yep.
Okay.
Chris, are you thinking that ARPA funding, the flow through of ARPA funding is going to impact how do you think it would impact their budget request?
It's going to be, I believe, built into the budget process this time, so.
Both the schools and the town? And the regional
The
schools?
town for sure, I don't know about the schools, they have a different,
They
I
have
forget
an
the name of
access
that program is, it has a different name. But I know the town, that's the plan, I think.
Because I think you raise a good point about that. I mean, it.
We
could
just
have
want to know it, we'd want to be able to understand
how it's
to what
gonna-
extent it's folded into the budget. That's really my question.
Well, why don't, on item number 6 and 7, additional information, why don't we put
I
in?
think Mr.
such
Johnson
as
might
ARPA.
have an answer on that one. Yeah.
That-
So I think we had FY '22 and FY '23 as years that were outside the budget process and where the town managers made some allocations, I think roughly $1 million, 1, 2, somewhere in there. And so then the balance of the funds, I think they need to be used by FY '25, I think it is, or '26. And so I think it's it's the next 3 years.
That's 3 years.
The next 3 years, we divide the remaining balance by 3 and fold that into the process. Now, question is capital versus,
So we'll figure out, maybe the language is.
so
around-
it's got to be roughly, 1.2, 1.3 per year for 3 years.
Million.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So Chris, I'm going to go back to your comment. I think it would be very valuable to know whether that's going into spending or capital, and especially, is it going into a spending,
Recurring spending
Yeah.
versus one-time spending.
and then,
No, well, that's
the
a
3
very
years
key
Right,
out,
are
element.
we
and
using
you're
it to
like,
offset
oh,
headcount?
This
What
is
do
why
we?
we
Now
did
we're
this,
gonna have
is
to
to
put it
give real
into-
deliberation rather than, I
Yeah.
mean, what has happened otherwise is
it's
that
like-
anytime any needs come up, everybody, first thing they say is, oh, can we use ARPA for this?
Right,
And it would all been gone by now.
Well, one year I recall we had gotten a grant and we had so we got a couple extra fire or policemen. And then, of course, the grant was over in 3 years, and guess what? Now we have to put it into the
That was
budget.
the West Concord, that was the West Concord police station, right? That
No,
where they added positions?
they added positions.
Yeah.
Yeah, with a grant. And then,
Oh.
once the grant was spent,
So
put it into payroll. So,
what I'll ask for is just a separate schedule identifying those. So I'll work with Bob and Carrie to
Yeah,
identify.
Carrie or Gail
the
should be
schedule.
able to, because I don't have this precise number.
yeah. I think at some point during the budget process, it'd be good to have either Bob or Carrie or someone explain this to us for
Yes.
real, right? What's going on, give us the actual, we had 5.6 million in ARPA, here's what we did in '22, here's what we did in '23, so we can see it. And then, just what Matt explained, how it's going to be absorbed into the budget. That would be a good agenda item for one of our upcoming meetings, I think.
Yeah, but it's on the scale of having an extra dose of CPC for 3 years.
Right. It's not huge.
Probably the
Yeah.
best way to
which
think
is
of it
mostly
too.
used for capital.
Right, probably the best way to think about it, because they're not ongoing.
That's a good way. I couldn't agree with you more.
Okay. And then we'll work out the dates. Bob and I will work out those offline and come back to folks.
Okay.
Any other input on the letter? And then Matt can officially receive it.
You're going to work on the dates? Is that what you just?
Yeah, in the next day or so, we'll fill in the dates here based on the schedule. We'll have the same process that we used last year, right? So they came in, high level, that's conversation, we give feedback, they go back, revise, they came in again, and then in December, we have the final sort of conversations.
No, you also had the letter to the new superintendent at the Minuteman Tech. All right, so that
Yep.
person will be coming in, that woman will be coming in at another time,
Yep.
right? And she probably will need maybe a little bit more time, as this is her first year.
Maybe, but I think we only brought them in twice, because there's a lot of it's dictated, our hands are tied a bit, right?
I think once.
Was it only once?
Once,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
He came to the hearing, though. We had him in once and then he.
Yeah, he has to come to the
Yeah,
hearing.
and then,
Yes.
yeah,
right,
so
right.
we'll use the same process. Okay.
So sometime between now and August 25th, which is our next meeting. Bob, if you could take this calendar, update it, we can insert any guidelines, schedule items, and ideally those would, be within another meeting.
Yes, we usually
We
follow
could
it
just
up.
trade seats,
Right.
and you can chair the guideline
Yep.
discussion and whatnot. Okay.
Yep, we just piggybacked on the regular schedule. Unless we want to meet on a Saturday.
So we're reserving all Thursday nights, right, for the rest of the year?
Well, no, we're not. What I think I meant was that we will try it to our best, if we need extra meetings, to stick to the Thursday night that we're somewhat familiar with. And that seems to work out okay. And we can go to full online meetings for certain things if it's short.
August 25th, right?
Perhaps, yes. And, maybe, I would rather have the meetings get over by 10 or 9, and then like have a 1-hour special meeting that's all online, in between. But I don't know whether other people would rather come on down, really hammer it out for, till 11 and then go home.
Will you be providing food and drink if we stay till 11?
Yeah, sure. Coffee. Okay. Capital planning schedule. I think we just went over that, Matt. We picked November 10th for our meeting with you. With you?
What's your meeting?
It's our meeting.
It's,
But we're not inviting the school committee and you.
It's our review of the
Last year was
plans
the
that they
first time we did this,
proposed.
and it's a little blurry. I
Yeah,
can't-
so,
You
but
and me both.
I think you have a joint meeting first.
Right.
Right, and at
With the
that meeting,
schools.
they propose a plan. So we look at that plan that they've proposed.
Okay.
And then the
it's her
intervening
meeting.
time, it's our meeting to review that plan.
Okay,
So they're
Then we
they're presenting
endorse the
now.
plan in,
okay.
I don't know
And
if
we'll
they were
see
here
how
or
it
not. They
compares,
could have been.
mainly
I
how
don't
it
remember
compares
how
to
it-
last year's plan.
well, exactly.
I mean, that's,
I mean, when this first was getting going, I thought, oh, this is perfunctory this year. Now I don't believe that.
the purpose of this meeting, of the capital plan, is to get a look at not just what the town's doing, but what the school's doing.
That's right.
That may or may not have been on the capital plan previously.
Right. So that's what I mean. It's going to be
Hopefully
eventful.
5 years before they roll it out
Yes.
as a done deal, if I'm not mistaken.
We create a 5-year capital plan. So we understand what
Yeah.
our ability to actually absorb capital
Yes.
uh,
Debt.
borrowing,
Yeah.
yeah, would be.
So does it also include the high school?
It
It
will
would include
now.
everything.
Yeah,
everything
It
we
will
did.
now.
Will be
The region
Concord
as well.
portion of the high school.
Yep.
that would
Yes.
It includes the region,
Yeah,
yeah.
for example,
Well, but
all
one
the
thing that,
roadway improvements and that, I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
that's a perfect example. That was probably not really on the
right, but
capital
enterprise
plan.
fund spending was not in scope.
No.
That is correct.
So,
I mean, that goes into the debt plan, but it's offset by the revenues, so it's different.
cross your fingers.
Okay. Did you say Beatty Center?
No, cross your-
Okay.
Hey, they had a big surplus,
They did.
big,
Wow,
awesome.
wow, that's great. I still think it's inevitable. Okay. Discuss the middle school next steps, financing model and tax impact. So gonna kind of look at Parashar.
I'm gonna look at Bob.
Okay, I'll share a screen.
Where did I get it?
Can everyone see this one okay? This is the current year FY23's excluded debt. And this is what was issued in June. So there's $860-odd thousand due the current year that's going to be added to the tax bill next, when the board does tax classification in the fall. So this $12 million has been issued. previous analysis done for town meeting, and there's another spreadsheet that also has this, I just wanted to start here, shows the regional high school, Minuteman, and the town. So this is the impact on the median assessed value home that was shown to town meeting last February. So again, for FY23, this is where you stood before the high school. I'm sorry, before
Middle
the middle
school.
school project. The $12 million that was issued in June will now do this to the 425 portion. It's 130
Sorry,
bucks.
excuse me, Bob.
Yeah.
Is there other debt out there? What about the elementary schools?
Yeah, that's all up
That's
here.
included.
Okay, up there.
yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
So that's all underneath
Okay.
these numbers here that someone calculated last February.
Okay.
So yes, it is. So the issuance that happened, that's a fact, has changed this portion by $130. And then the question is, what happens with the rest of the debt, which is, obviously unknown. Here is a way to look at what the impact is. This is a spreadsheet I shared with a couple of you that allows you to look and see, because you've modeled it different ways, different issuance patterns, different amount of years. But this is just one example. If you issued the remaining 90 million.
I bet you need to speak up and get closer.
Yeah, if you issued the remaining 90 million in time for a year from now, this $500 number would go up to $1,700. So it'd add $1,200 per household, which is probably a number that's familiar to all of you from past discussions.
And that's the median house valued at about 900,000. And the interest rate is 3.5.
This one here, I used 5, just to be real careful.
Okay.
The 1,200, Bob, was the total number. So is that on top of the 130? So is it really, so is it
Really,
13?
yes, but again, the future is at 5%. In the past, I'm sure you didn't use 5%.
No, we didn't. Okay, okay. So is that assuming stabilization or no?
None.
None. Okay, so that's
Pure.
without any stabilization. So 1,200 coming up and 130 already, so 1,300.
Correct. And then just for laughs, I added in the other 5 million that, is now discussed as potentially a shortfall, and it shows, that's another 60 bucks a household or so. And again, we probably wouldn't issue this fast, and hopefully it wouldn't cost 5%, but this is a way to start looking at it. And I know you've discussed different ways to issue, not only in timing, something you had earlier had it in kind of 2 more phases, not 1, and it all depends. I don't know the construction schedule. I do know it's going to be better known by February, and you'll have a better idea.
What was the other 5 million?
The
overrun.
Just the estimate. And then
Commonly known as.
in addition to the timing of issuance, there's different ways you can issue. You can issue, this all assumes level principal, equal repayments every year. So that would be a declining interest payment. There's a way to do level debt service where it's effectively decreasing interest and increasing principal along the way. So
like
the
a
total is
mortgage.
about the same. And that's an option. We did that once for our high school. It's generally a little more expensive to do it that way, but you can make an argument for whatever reason you may want to choose that, just to have an equal impact over time.
And did you do this at 25 or 30 years?
25.
25.
But as you get closer to really needing to think about this, this is a way you can change any of these assumptions quite easily and look at the differences.
Peggy, I have a question.
Yes, I'm sorry, Amrith.
Yeah, would it be possible for you to add row 48 and row 51, for example, because that would be the total amount that we expect we would pay if we had 95 million for the school and whatever we have right now, because what we looked at last time around was the fact that the data in rows 47 was going down, and we did some modeling on how we could try and smooth out what the average household would do. That's not being done here, so I want to know what the total number is that we have to smooth.
I think it's 1,400 there.
I'm not.
No, it's not.
By smoke out, but if you look.
No,
at
not smoke out, smooth out. So if you scroll a little bit to the left, I believe that according to this current plan,
Right, row
the
40,
average,
row
the average-
47 is decreasing.
yes, so row 48 is what we expect the average household will be paying. That's 552 down to 336. But there's going to be a steep rise during the first 3 or 4 years that we have the school debt, and we had done some modeling to try and smooth that steep spike out. You see, it goes up to 1,700 and drops down to 1,400.
Right.
And
use some kind of
Yeah, we were going to
reserves.
use stabilization reserve.
Right.
So what are you trying to figure out, Amrith?
I just wanted him to add row 48 and 50 or row 48 and 51 and show the numbers there so we can see what the actual smoothing is going to have to look like now. Because he's doing it with different percentages. He's doing it with different amounts than we did the last
Okay,
time.
okay. All right, well, we can ask him to maybe come back with that. I don't know if he can do
Just
it
to be
right here.
clear, though, all these rows are cumulative.
Yeah.
They're already cumulative.
It's already,
But there is no.
row
smoothing.
51 is all the debt, right? Row 51 is 95, it's all the debt, not
Oh,
just,
this is all the debt. Okay, thank you. That's so 1830. The last line 51 is what I'm looking for. Thank you.
So that's all the debt. Households are already paying much of that,
They're paying
all of
about
it, and it
900.
will be decreasing.
They're paying about 900.
Well,
And-
No, they're paying
This is
500.
all the debt of the middle school.
No, they're paying, well, excluded debt is about 900 in the bill
Per person,
today.
per
Where do you
per-
get 900? Adding 47, 48?
I don't
No,
know.
it's up top. There's other debt not
There's
included.
other,
here.
there's other debt, there's
Oh.
high school, you
It
have to
doesn't
go,
include the regional high school and the.
yeah,
Minuteman.
if you go up,
Right.
excluded debt's about 1,000 a person.
Oh, I see.
So it's
Right.
36, 37, and whatever the last lines were, either 48 or 52 is what we are looking for, or 51. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Yes, 425.
about 500
there's three
bucks to
numbers,
line
it adds up to
51,
about
you'd have the
900.
total excluded debt that the town is
That's the
paying.
excluded
town
debt you're
taxpayers
paying in
pay.
tax.
Okay, so what's line 47?
What's 527?
No, what's line 47?
That's
Line
what he
47
voted.
is just the
Just voted
towns.
12 million.
That's the number you showed to February town meeting as being the current town portion.
For the middle school.
No, well,
No.
for all this debt up here.
So, right, so that's the 420,
the
okay,
Feasibility study and then
sure.
Willard, Thoreau, Alcott.
Okay, so that's the 425, it's sunk
And the high
costs.
That's
school.
absolutely.
Those are
No,
sunk
not the high
costs.
school.
So where does the 900 come from? I'm still confused.
Well, then there's two other pieces. that
Okay,
are-
where are those?
You
Hold
know, you
on.
sometimes treat them separately, but
Yep.
you have the regional
Got
school-
it.
high school. and-
Okay,
and
adding
Minuteman.
those up. Okay, got it. Thank you.
And all the work below does not include the regional voc school or the high school.
Got it.
So Bob, we used to get like a bar chart graph that would show all those components and the total debt going
Yeah.
up and then coming back. Can we try that?
Yeah, definitely.
Let's just, and we could, color coded, other debt, elementary schools, clump some of them, but the point being that it'll show the debt coming down and then the middle school, bring it back up.
I think this will be important to get this simplified and easy to understand so we can put in our report
Yep.
Yeah.
in the event that there is a special town meeting, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So, okay,
And that allows you, when you have a good visual for a lot of people, it
Yeah.
allows you to think strategically about how do you want to add reserves or stabilization fund.
But I'm sure John would be able to do that. Because I think he's done that for many, many years under, previous town financial director. So the next steps, I don't think we have any more information really on that, Chris.
I wanted to give an update on the meeting this morning. So just to stay on that one for a second, though. So we have 1,400 now, and that's on a median tax bill of around 14,000. So
I'm sorry, you have 14.
1,400 in incremental debt service. Is that correct? I have it right? Yeah. So when the full load goes on, which is what year? It's 25, 24?
Probably not till 25.
Okay, so in 25, so that full impact of 1,400 bucks hits the tax bill. So, and our median is somewhere around 14,000. It'll be a little higher, I assume, by 24, but so
And what's the median house valuation that you're talking about now?
900, almost $1 million.
Call it it'd be,
Yeah.
it'd be great to just run it on $1 million, because then anyone can do the math.
Well, they use the exact, it's okay, yeah, they use the exact number. So that increment, the 1,400 is on the 14,000. So for this item, it's a 10% hit to the tax bill, for this alone, right? So that's what we talk about when we were talking about it back in the discussions of the 100 million, right? So I think we were around 8%, or I can't remember what the number was before, but it was 1,200 before you smooth, right? Because we have the peak. So we had 3 years until the other schools start to come down, right? So we have this big spike. We don't yet have that reserve. So what have we got? We've got,
We have 2.5 million.
what do we have now? 2.5 million? That's what I'm trying to remember. Where are we up to? 3?
Town meeting.
Yeah. 1.5 million did we get from the assessors?
2.5 before, but I'm not.
So it's 2.5 or 3, I can't remember anymore, but it's in our report.
But we were trying to get 5.
Right, if you don't get to 5, you don't get much smoothing, right? So that's one of the other, so this makes the peak higher. So we should also relook at our smoothing calculations as well, so to see.
We have until 2027 to get to that 5 million.
No.
And no, the way Carrie used it, so it depends on how you use it. So in Carrie's model, she was using none in 24, most of it in 25, and then she reduced it. Yeah, you had to, because the peak was so high. Yeah, but she had a nice model that kind of worked it out as the best way to use the reserve.
Before, and she said we'd have to have the 5 million by 2027.
Well, you don't have to, she uses it, you're right, I'm sure there is some aspect of that, Dee. I do think she needs a big slug, but in 25. I don't know how much. So I don't know if we have enough for 25 yet either. So, okay, so that's the tax discussion, I guess. We had also asked to sort of have that benchmark of for every million, so do we have that?
I think we did, right? Bob's house, we can do that, yeah.
Okay, so you can give us that, so we have a kind of a rule of thumb. For every million it goes up, so if it goes up
Right,
further,
right.
we'd have a way to think about that. Okay, that's good. So I just wanted to give an update. Myself and Suresh are the observers to the middle school, and they had a meeting this morning. So since we met with them last week, they had their meeting this morning. So this morning they talked about the couple of different things, but certainly including the VE or value engineering process that they could use to adjust the project in order to reduce the cost. So we know we have the $5.3 million overrun, which we've known since about mid-June. The committee decided in late June that they would want to wait until October to actually see the next round of estimates before they finalized any value engineering. But as Matt mentioned, they're going to go through and prioritize potential items now. And there was a list of about 2.1 million that was provided or proposed, I guess, to the committee out of potential 10 million that was identified by the OPM, that's the project manager. So they went through to say, what could we possibly take out? So there's about 10 million in there. But to be fair, that 10 million included some things that were fairly extreme, like don't demo the building. That's about $2 million, or don't build fields, which would be about $1.5 million. So there were plenty of real things, but there's a few things that are a bit extreme. They seem extreme to me, included in that 10 million. So the 2 million, there was a little bit of a discussion on that today. It sounds like the committee members are reviewing that. They didn't reach any conclusion as to whether they would accept the 2 million. Of interest is that list that was proposed does not have any adjustments to the education wing of the building. So in terms of space, right? So that was intentional. So the superintendent has said that the ed plan, she does not want to move off the ed plan. So I think in their initial cut, they have not touched that. That at some point may need to be touched. Otherwise, it would limit the opportunities for savings. to get there. Maybe we don't need it, maybe we do, so we're
There
gonna
was some
see.
concern that that would require substantial design dollar revision. I mean, you have to redesign.
Potential, but the
Depending on what they
designer was asked that when they decided to not make the adjustments on the May numbers.
Okay.
And they said, no, we can wait till October to do it. But you're right, depending upon the scale of the adjustment, you could have other costs that knock off of it. So, but they haven't gotten to that yet. So they're thinking about it. Let's see. They also, I believe, agreed to review the high dollar items on the rejected list. So if they get through the 2.1 million, they will go back and look at the remaining of that 10 million to see is there anything in there that they might want, or at least to understand why they were rejected. So I think there'll be discussion there. I would think that's a good step. And then whether they'll go further than that, I think will depend upon where they are when they figure out what's required and how big their list is. There was discussion about making sure there's an option for the 80 million, which is a construction budget within the 102.8. So to come up with something that says, here's what an $80 million construction building would look like, which I think is the right answer.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea.
We did ask for that.
We did, and I think that's right.
Okay.
There isn't a goal particularly set for VE, so again, because they don't really have a number. The number in May was 5.3. They won't know until October what the next number is. So it's not as if there's no clear goal yet. And there wasn't any discussion about any further contingency, but some of what we talked about at that meeting last week, if you're going to have 2 or 3 months of a lag due to a special town meeting, right? So they have to stop. So once we don't know what the number is, they can't really go further, right? So if you had 2 or 3 more bites at the apple, it really impacts the timing of this, I assume. So if we've had a number in January that was another couple million higher, and we had already, had a special town meeting, you'd stop the bus again. So one of the things that I assume they will talk about, but they haven't yet, but I think we should think about, is to what degree additional contingencies might be built into this, because we didn't have
How
enough.
much fluff are we willing to put in that
Well,
budget?
right, how much
So
do
that we
we?
don't have to go back.
You don't want to go back. It seems to me the
We don't want to
disruption.
put it in there so they'll just spend to it.
No,
And I
right.
don't think they would.
Well, you
But
don't
we
want that,
don't
right.
know what the bids are going to look like.
I think there's this balancing act, because the disruption to the schedule is going to be big if we have to go back 3 times. And we have a couple more, but so we have the October estimate, that's a risk. We have the January estimates, a risk. The April, which would be the next one, that's kind of covered because we have the $2 million in the bidding contingency still. But those other 2 spots, we don't have anything, right? So as of May, we were 5 million over. I don't know what the number will be in October. Could be more, could be less, I don't know. Same thing in January. So we have, there's risk in these numbers, right? So
The question is whether 2 million is even the proper number for bid.
I don't know, but I would think at some point in this process,
It's
that
gonna
should get brought
tighter
up.
and tighter and
right?
tighter, yeah.
Yeah, but we need to think about that in terms of what we want to do for what we think about the number, because if we want the number to stay the same, then that means as they value engineer, they need to get cushion. In other words, they need to go deeper than they think they are, because they're going to need some cushion in the number, or ask for more money, one way or the other. But that's something I think to think about on this. I think those were the main
Chris, at the
points. Yeah.
meeting Today,
Yeah.
did they talk about having the estimate and then having things, as Parashar had brought up last week, having items that they could chop out?
Yes, that's the
what-
purpose. So between,
Okay.
I think.
So that was the 2.1 million that
That's
they've come up
that's
with?
the first step,
So
right?
it's-
Exactly,
okay.
exactly. So they would have a prioritized list. Yeah.
And 2.1 is still on the table. So 8 million is
Two,
not on the table.
2.1, they've come forward with and said, these could be good cuts.
Right, yeah,
The others they rejected.
took off the table.
They took off the table, but they could go back and look at some more of those, I guess, if they'd like to. I think that's the process they're gonna go through. So that's where they are right
So
now.
Did they talk anything, and did they talk about what the target really should be, or what they could I mean, you're
Nope.
talking about 2.1 they took off out of 10, but where did they come up really with this 10 million? Why are they?
So the owner project manager, so they went through, I believe, their own, so they came out with what are
Alright,
the things that we
that's-
could cut.
Okay.
So that's their, their professionals help them figure out that list. So they have to then go back through it. I think there may be other questions. So the committee, I think, had questions beyond that list. And there was some back and forth, but again, they hadn't finished that. So, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I see Don's hand raised. Don?
Yes, sorry, thank you. I was going to say, in a case like this, I think given the approvals that are needed for any additional spend, the prudent path would be for the building committee to instruct the designers to design what they believe to be an $80 million building with add alternates. And then if the either the bids are improved or a special town meeting, additional funds are approved, the add alternates can be incorporated. And we could actually be voting on two versions of the school at that time. One that's truly an austerity kind of a building built to the current budget, or a better building, perhaps with lower life cycle costing, et cetera, built to a higher budget. But that way, there's no risk of proceeding, of getting to a town meeting, not getting the approval for additional funds for a building that's been already fully designed, and having to pay the designers to redesign to a lower level. Today, what's authorized is that $103 million project. Seems to me that the design team should be held to that.
Well, I believe they're going to do, I hope they are, right? That was our discussion last week, and they had that discussion today. So there were at least some members who were recommending that. And I didn't hear any, I didn't hear dissent on it. So we'll be looking for that. I think, go ahead.
Chris,
sorry.
that's about your 10 million that you were talking about, where some things like don't tear down the existing building, no field, some kind of.
Or something
Really?
else. Remember that they were told you can't touch the building in terms of the school building, right? So if there's an option to do that, then there's other changes that could be done.
Okay.
But, and also these things have different values, right? So if you remember, we had the add-on for the gym and the add-on for the auditorium, and that space, I imagine, has a lower cost per square foot than some of the other space.
Sure.
And so I think that will also probably figure into it as well. So I don't believe, I could be wrong on this, I don't think the 10 million included the a change on the auditorium or the gym. I don't think so.
Is there any discussion of building those, like taking off the gym and the auditorium and building them later?
Not so far.
Or private fundraising, or?
Not so far.
Okay.
So it hasn't come up.
Ray, and then I'm going to go to you, Suresh. Ray.
Okay, just a question. As we get closer, don't we reduce the cost for some of the time-related contingencies, the fact that we're, getting closer to the actual bidding?
Yeah, and that gets reflected in the estimates, Ray. You're exactly right. So if you looked at the contingencies from, from prior to May, the last time they did it, maybe it was 4 or 5 months before then, you would have seen them drop. So that you see that happening. As more becomes known, the contingencies drop.
The other question I have is just, I think in a lot of buildings, finishes is really a big number.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you go to split face block or something like that.
They're looking at all that. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, they're looking at all that. That's part of the process. Yeah.
Suresh?
Said somebody else. Yes, Suresh.
Thanks, Peggy. Yes, you're
How
right.
did I do, Suresh? You bail me out.
You did very well. So just to add to it, yes, there is a $3.5 million design and estimating contingency still within the $80 million or the $86 million budget. So there is a $3.5 million. And I think to add to Don's comment, yes, you have the alternates, and you can also, one of the things that was mentioned today was go with precast curbs in some areas, and go with less tile in the bathroom. So those can be accomplished also through some unit pricing. There's a strategy of using unit pricing that some are, let's say we buy 1,000 square foot of tiles in the base contract, and then we have a unit pricing of other 5,000 square feet that we can buy it later on, but we get the pricing up front at the bid time. So those are different things that you can add to it, and that's a common practice to add, because when you're tight on budgets, you want to do your base as minimal as possible and have the add alternates, the options. But the alternates have to be very carefully strategized, because they have to be taken, like I think Dawn mentioned the last time too, in the joint meeting that or in the meeting, finance committee meeting, they have to be taken in the order of the precedence, or you put them in. So you have to be very careful with that. So that's one item. And I think there was a, comments this morning earlier in the, meeting by Ned, and it was a, I admire all the people who've done all the hard work, no questions, a lot of hard work to go to these committees and, do the work for the building committees. And having worked with Phil Benekasa way back in 2000, I know what you have to go through these here, and the town administration for that matter. And yes, we don't have the MSBA involved here now, but we still got to follow their principles. One of the things that I still feel, I think that we as the finance committee should bring it to their attention, that maybe I need an answer, maybe it's not, I'm missing something. The budgets that are being shown to us now are based upon an average of the two estimates, whereas I believe the MSBA standard is always use the architect's estimate. So there's a difference of almost $500,000. We're going one to the other. So which we're using the average estimate. What was done at the schematic design level, I don't have that information, institutional knowledge. So that maybe that was how you followed the last time, but it normally is always we follow the information given by the designer, their estimator, not the OPM's estimator. So that's always the case being around. And I think
I think they did that at schematic design as well. I think that's the last time we saw the estimate. I think that's how they did it. So we can always ask Suresh. We can ask them about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
One more thing I can add to it is, I think Matt said very clearly this morning, there are a lot of design items, elements that can be, part of the value engineering, $50,000, $80,000 each item, like the bridge to. We know there's a bridge there and nobody knows the bridge to nowhere looks like. So maybe we need to eliminate those things, because the cuts are always difficult to make. The wants are easy to have, but the cuts are always, you die by 1,000 cuts, but you got to be careful where you take your cuts. So I would leave it at that and say, yes, thank you, Matt, for being very, frugal about it, and needs to be there. So I'm also in support personally for all the schools, and never always been and will be, but we always need to look at some of the other constituents, what they feel about it.
Yeah. So, what I was saying to Dawn last night, and I guess I'm interested in the committee's input on this. So we're not on the building committee, right? So, but we're going to get asked a question about it if more money is asked for. So for me, it's about their process, right? And so if the process appears to be a fair, balanced, reasonable process that's transparent and we can understand what's going on, then we can probably get more comfort in how it comes out. There needs to be appropriate tension, right? In a process like this, you're always going to have the folks who are interested in the best design, and then obviously the folks that are running they're all. They want to do the right thing for the community. They want to have a great school, and that's important, and it's good, and it's going to be a very important investment for the town. So we're interested as well in that it be spent properly and that we get good value for the money. And you need that tension, I think, on all projects. It needs to be an appropriate tension. And so that's something I'm also looking for. So do we see the appropriate tension between the committee to make sure that the financial side is getting balanced properly with the wants and the needs of the community and the teachers and the students and so forth?
So
and,
are they at that process, or excuse me, are
well,
they
that's
at that point?
I think they are, right? So they've already been there, right? So they've went through that process to come to the 100 million. and now we're adjusting it, and the same process should be there. Yeah.
Okay, so are you finding that at this point in their process, that there is the tension? or
There's
not?
some, I'll be honest with you, this bit about, the ed plan is sacred, to me, that's not a good sign, right? That's somebody saying, nothing to see here, don't touch this part of the building. So I think that is something we'll have to watch to sort of, and push back on to say, why isn't that something that could be included? But we don't have to yet, because they're not done, right? We have to let them go through their process and see what they come up with. But if they were short, and that was, there was no looking at, gee, can we shave some space off of this other part of the building? I would press on that to make sure that we felt that was
If you're
fair.
going to do that, Chris, I think now's the time to either to push on it or get
Yep.
an explanation that the finance committee can get comfortable with. Because the further we go, the less possible it is to, move around something on the ed plan side. So,
Mhm.
as between you and Suresh on the as the representatives, I would ask that question. I don't know whether you'll get a change in the ed plan, but now is the time to get a good explanation, so that I don't think we want to go back later and ask that question
It's fine.
after,
Yeah.
if you're asking the question now, I think now's the time to ask it.
Good.
I don't
I can
think-
do that.
I completely agree with you that, we're not the building committee and we're not the school committee. So, our role is to, as you said, look at the process, feel comfortable with the tension and the pushback, the financing plan, be able to explain the impacts of this so that
Right. And if,
our voters are fully informed.
Yeah, and we can explain, this is why we vote for it or we vote against it, right? Depending, so I really wanted to ask, well, thank you for that input. I asked the committee, are there other considerations you want us to add? What do you want to hear? So if in 6 weeks we come to you, or 12, we come and we say, okay, they're going to ask for 6 million more, what are you going to want to know to vote, I support that, or I don't? You don't have to answer me right now, but I want you to think about it. So I started to think about it, and for me, it's about that process.
So I like what you've already been saying.
Okay.
That they came in, there were, 10 million, they put some stuff off the table, but it's
And that contingency
transparent.
question, I also want to hear about
And
that.
the contingency, but it's transparent because that list is available. And
Right.
some things got moved over here and some things got moved over
Right.
there.
Yeah, you
And
can
that's
see it.
transparent. And that's the answer and the process that you're talking about.
So I like the transparency, and that's good that they've got a menu of items. But if I recall the discussion last week, we were encouraging them at the end, if necessary, not even if necessary, to come to a point where they're actually presenting 2, preferably 3, complete internally consistent options.
Yep.
One that says we originally designed it this way, and this is what the current cost is. Another one that says we can take some combination of these things and bring it down, and here's what it would look like. And a third might be one that says, hey, we've got a $2.8 million budget. Here's what we would have to change to get it there. Because that, in my mind, is true choice versus a menu, which really may not be internally consistent, because then you're leaving people guessing, like, what are you going to combine together?
And I think Chris said they were going to show you what we
At
can
least,
get.
at least one.
What
Well-
it's going to look like at the voted
Right,
price.
so I would think there'd be 2. That's what I think there'd be 2. I mean,
I think there's
we'll have
gonna-
to see
I
what
think
they-
I personally think if you got one that's this and one that's this, there might be some room for compromise and put something in the middle.
But maybe that would come about during the
Yeah.
discussion of the.
Yeah,
Fair enough,
exactly.
but we
So-
should,
I
I
mean,
think we
that's
should push for
the one
that.
in the middle may be the one that's with the 2.1 subtracted that's currently on the table. You
Yeah, as long as it's internally consistent, not just a menu of items.
Yeah.
That's my
Right.
point.
So I think that Don
Right,
brought up earlier.
I'm just, Amherst has had his hand up for a little
Okay.
while.
No, go ahead. I'll wait. No, she was in the middle of saying something.
Suresh?
Yeah,
do
just
you
want
still
to
have-
add,
you
one
still
more.
have your hand up, or you
Yeah,
just
no.
got to put it down?
I do know, I have just one more item to add to it. I think we also need to be consistent about, giving the design professionals enough time to do their work right, because if you don't have a good set of documents prepared, you're gonna pay the cost later. So that, and the time frame of that is crucial at this point, before we get to this October deadline, to make a decision or indecision, whichever way, a bad decision or indecision, because it needs to be made now, at least, or documented now, to say what needs to be done to get to the level where we need to be, and what would we like to have, based upon the market condition. But the question always remains, if you miss the deadlines now, say October, which has a almost an impact down the line all the way through till the end of the project, we need to be careful about that.
Okay, Dee.
Yeah, so just to go back to last week, and then because Matt brought up, well, at town meeting, you could have 3 different options. Parashar mentioned that again. Don mentioned that again, of having, an 80 million and 100 million options. And it just seems to me that maybe that is some information that Chris can take back, Chris and Sharif can take back to the building committee, that would be a recommendation of ours, that they do construct that. And they heard all that information last week as well. But also, are we planning to invite the committee back to?
I'm sure we will. Yeah, I'm sure we will.
When they have their option or options available.
Right.
And
Right. Well, one of the things that we don't have, which I would like, and I'm probably going to ask them for this specifically, is they don't have it yet, I don't believe. So it's a schedule, right? So if you're going to do this value engineering process, when are you going to be done? Is it going to be done in a month? Are you going to be done? Is it going to take? I don't know the length of time that they're anticipating. I think they're still working through that, but as soon as they know that, then I think we'd be able to sort of say, well, and I can be telling you, depending on how fast or slow they're moving, this is when we should talk to them, right? This is when we should come back.
But if they have the list, okay, the 103 list, and we can see what's taken out of that, the $1,000,010 list or whatever, we can see what's in that. We already know that one. That was the plan as presented.
Yes, right.
And then what's in the middle, it's not really up to us to decide whether they're looking at the right elements or have gotten to the right number. That is not our job. Our job, I think we're doing already, just pushing back, asking the questions, and let them decide what slides into which column.
Yep. I think the on the options thing, so I think that's appealing, but there's some danger in that too, because you don't want people to sort of say, well, we'll just leave it to the taxpayer then, forget it, we'll just go and say, here's the number. I think that there's too much information and too much process. We have a lot of information on what's going on in all the town. We have the understanding what's going on in the tax rate. So I think there does have to be appropriate deliberation, and a real push for, this is the thing they want, right? So I'm okay. I absolutely want to see what it looks like at 100 million, but I don't think there should be, oh yeah, this way, because I think it just kind of throws it to the taxpayer. Right. I think there should be a recommended model from them.
That's all right.
Yeah. So that's what I worry about with the options thing, because I don't want it to give people the easy way out. That's all I'm saying.
Look,
because this is the hard part.
No,
right?
I agree.
Yeah,
So
right?
I think that what I'm trying to, in an ideal world, they would say we have option 1, 2, and 3. The school committee or the select board recommends 2 or whatever, and we would weigh in with our own recommendation, whether it's the same one or something different. But at least then, voters have a choice. They see what was recommended by the school.
As long as it doesn't shortcut the VE process, that's all I care
Well,
about.
the VE process hopefully results in one of those.
Well, that's what I would
options.
want. I want a real VE process, because I think the town deserves that. We need to demonstrate, the project needs to demonstrate good process over budget control, right? This is just the beginning, right? We're going to have 3 more bites at the apple before the bids come in, and then you're going to have construction, and construction's going to have problems too. And that muscle, that committee muscle of how do we manage through, a challenge on the budget needs to be needs to be there, it needs to be built, and that's what I'm looking for, right? Do they have the ability to manage the money in the project?
I'm going to turn to Amherst, and then we're going to move
Yep.
on to the next agenda item.
Okay.
Yeah, Peggy, I just wanted, one thing I wanted to add was in the original budget, which was proposed, there was a buffer which was anticipated to be used in contingencies, unforeseen situations, and so on. We also heard last week from a person in town, which I've been thinking about a bit. I think the townspeople voted for a school, and they voted for a number based on what they thought their tax bill was going to change by. Given the reality now with the interest rate and stuff like that, the same school for the same amount is potentially going to cost the taxpayer more. So if we have a special town meeting, there's no guarantee the number is only going to go up. The number could even go down. So at the end of the day, the townspeople are voting on what they want their tax bill to be. And the tax bill they voted for is potentially going to be less than the tax bill they're going to get. So we need to keep that in mind when we make our recommendation, not just the value engineering part, but also what is the impact going to be on the townspeople and what is the tax amount going to be. So we might actually come in with a recommendation which is lower than last time. And we should be prepared for that with a good explanation. That's all I got.
Okay, I'm going to ask the committee, we have a member of the public with his hand raised. We have a couple significant other items on the agenda.
Okay.
So should we take this public comment now, or should we wait till the end?
Yeah, I think he's the fellow who wrote the letter on this.
Facts.
Yeah, okay, I
Hey,
would.
Louis.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I just have a few comments. So just to introduce myself, I'm Louis Salami. I live in Great Meadows Road. I was vice chair of the high school building project, and this is kind of like, reliving my past in terms of what's going on. I also served on the school committee for 6 years. So the schools are always number one in my thought. So just on the ed plan, which the person was discussing, I've been kind of following what's been going on for a while. There appears to be huge reluctance on the part of the school administration, the school committee, and a number of members on the building committee to not cut any of the ed plan. And the issue with this building is because it is net zero already, there's really only two ways to cut costs, either by changing the design or by changing the square footage. I mean, that's pretty much it. Changing this tile for that tile, when you do that, it impacts the net zero already nature of the building. And so because it's net zero already, you really can't substitute materials to drive down costs. You really have two options: either change the design, and it is a complex design, or change the square footage. The school this building is 30,000 square feet over the current MSBA guidelines. The school district 2 or 3 times applied to the MSBA for funding. Implicit in that filing, for funding, and they were rejected, which I totally understand why they were. I mean, the MSBA gave us $27 million for the high school. Implicit in that filing was an understanding that they could make the ed plan work by the MSBA guidelines. So the question that has not been answered by the school administration and the building committee is, if you filed by the MSBA, to get funding, implicit in that funding, filing was the understanding that you can actually make your ed plan work. So my question is, if you were willing to accept MSBA money, how come now you're holding to this building, which is 30,000 square feet above the MSBA guidelines? Secondly, and this is, I think, near and dear to your heart, there's a big difference between an estimate, even 100% CD estimate, and an actual bid. The high school, which had a construction manager, at risk, that this is the method that we chose, and they were beating on their subs. When we actually got the bids, before we signed the GMP, or the guaranteed maximum price, the bids came in $8 million over what we were expecting. And this was a construction value, I think, of $75 million. There is significant risk but this project, that when the bids actually come in, they are well above what the current estimate is, even at 100% CD. So when you're thinking about what this project's gonna cost, understand that there is huge risk. The construction environment today, as has been detailed, and discussed ad nauseam, is crazy. My concern is no one's going to actually bid on this job because there's so much construction going on in the market, and there's not a construction manager, as part of this project. Very few are going to bid, and those that are going to bid are going to bid way above market. Thank you for your time. Those are my comments.
Thank you very much for that optimistic outlook. Okay, thank you all, especially Suresh and Chris for observing this committee.
Sure.
I think you'd probably rather go back to chair, right?
No.
Okay. All right, our next discussion item is our approach to the sustainable growth rate. And Parashar has done some work on this, and I think about 10 minutes, do you think?
I hope so.
Okay.
Yeah. Bob, you want to pull up the slides there? So the first couple slides are just there for context for everybody. We'll just breeze right through those unless there are questions. Let me turn my mic on. It's coming up.
Can we share the screen?
There we go. Okay. Oops. Oh, we're talking about the slides, Bob.
Are these the right ones?
No, those are the, sorry? That's the spreadsheet that I used.
Yeah,
We want
that's
the
the slides,
slides.
yeah.
We don't want to go into the gory details.
Parashar, these are the slides which were in the packet.
They are in the packet from this morning.
Great, thanks.
So while Bob brings those up, so a reminder, we went through this last month, and the first couple of slides are just background around the SGR. Formula, go ahead.
You have not defined SGR routinely, some of our audience.
Yes, okay. Sustainable growth rate is what SGR is. So if you go to the next slide, Bob, slide three, the SGR came about back in 2018. And you're right, it's never actually defined here. That's silly. But the notion was some sort of measure, some sort of index, guardrail, whatever term you want to use, to, in essence, capture a sense of what would the rate of increase have to be or should be in the property bills to maintain fiscal sustainability. Those are their direct quotes, and you can see the 5 bullets, 6 bullets that they have there. Multiple different goals within the definition of fiscal sustainability. Some of it is, hey, keep the cost down. Some of it is keep investing in the things that are important to town residents. And the last one is maintaining character, including economic diversity, sort of the affordability, ability to pay kind of thing. And of note for us is there's no direct relationship to the annual budget guideline. It was something sort of keep in the back of your mind as we're developing guidelines for next year's budget. Okay, next slide. So the formula they came up with was right up there, basically. Take the most recent 12-month historical CPI for the region, take the 10-year T-bill yield on the first day of July, add them up and divide by 2. Pretty simple formula. One looks backward and one looks forward. And you can see last year we used that formula and you came up with 2.34 for every year. Next slide. So there's a couple issues from my perspective, and I think we had a lot of discussions. I'm not going to get into this. I think a lot of folks said, geez, let's take a look at the methodology. Part of it is it looks historical when the whole point is to look forward. 10-year T-bills were supposed to be a proxy for inflation. Well, why not just use real inflation projections that folks have, et cetera. And as you can see, by using one flat number over 5 years, it doesn't actually vary in terms of the future year by year. So then we had some discussion around what should the SGR reflect. Is it just the cost growth in the budget? Should it reflect ability to pay? Are there other objectives? Should it be a mix of those objectives? Since we had a wide-ranging discussion around that. One element that at least I had put forward was whatever we use should be widely available so everybody can kind of see where it came from for transparency. The notion was if we have economic projections that are widely available, aligned to whatever objectives we want, just use those because those are also vary year to year, and you'll see that in a minute. And because these are projections in the future, you're less likely to get these weird year-to-year variations. You'll see what happens. Last year was 2.34. If you go to the next slide, or 2 slides later, you'll see this. So what we came up with, I think last time the request was, yeah, this all sounds good. Let's just come up with some concrete approaches or methodology. Another one is let's revise the formula to take the mix of things into account. And then I think several folks suggested, well, why does it have to be one number? Why can't it be kind of 2 guardrails? One to reflect cost and another one to maybe some proxy on ability to pay. So that's what I've got in the next 3 slides. So if we stick to the current methodology, we'd get an SGR of 5.19%, which going from 2.34 last year to 5.19 for the next 5 years seems a little, those are the variations in the swings I was talking about, right?
Well, it builds in a hopefully temporary inflation.
Yes, it does, and you'll see, yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Which, again, when you're going back historical, it has less meaning going forward, right? And so, but that's the number. You spit it out, and that's what it comes up with. Now, for all of our references, I just put in CPIU, urban inflation growth rate, down at the bottom on all the slides, okay? So if we go, and you can see the variation, it is supposed to come down. These projections are from the Congressional Budget Office, by the way. So
Can you just
yeah,
go back
yep.
1 second?
Back up one.
Yeah, just. So
The-
what is CPIU 75?
That's the CPIU for the last 12 months in the Boston region,
Which one, the
the
7.5?
7.5.
And what's the one at the bottom of the page? I don't.
So that's the projections for the future from the Congressional Budget Office.
Oh, okay.
That's
All right,
just
so
there
this is
for
the-
pure
this is
reference.
History.
So the value is
The S-
23.
Sorry?
Yeah, your value is 22 or 23 or
Well, it's the last 12 months that ended in May.
in May. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, I see.
So it's
there-
going
so
backwards.
we had
It's
7.5
that spike up, yeah.
Right, we had 7.5% of inflation, they're projecting another 2.6.
Well, so there's,
How I think about it?
think about it that way, yes, a
Right,
little bit,
okay.
yes. Yes, yes, that's exactly right.
Right.
That's
okay.
exactly what's happening.
Well, dropping off of some other a point in time, right?
Well, remember, the
You're still
7.5
going to be
is
up
going
above the
backwards.
prior year.
Yeah, but there's 2 years missing in here, right? Because this is a 20, think of the 7.5, because it's 12 months backwards. You're looking at 21 and 22.
Okay,
And then fiscal year 24 for us starts in June of 2020, July of 2023,
okay,
That's the
so it's
budget
a year
we're
and a
working
half
toward,
missing.
yeah.
Okay, okay.
right? So that's what's going
Yes, I
on.
see. Oh, because that's the budget we're going to be
That's the
talking about.
budget we're
Okay.
talking about.
All right, I got it.
Okay?
Okay.
So the second approach is to basically say, look, we've got some mixed objectives when we talk about SGR. If we want to talk about cost growth in the budgets, you can use a couple different indices or proxies. And when you consider that town and school budgets are not just goods and services, but people, employment costs, we can take a look again. CBO is the best proxy, nationally widely available, internally consistent. All of these numbers are internally consistent with each other. They have a proxy for what does it cost private employers to basically employ people. And that's total compensation, wage increases, et cetera. So you can see that number one. Number two is I'm sorry, what is chained? So chained weighted CPIU is the concept that when inflation goes up, people will find other substitutions to use, which I think most people agree that's what happens in real life. And so the reason maybe to think about using that is I know the town and the schools watch their budgets carefully, and they're going to go figure out what else they can substitute instead of sticking to the same old, same old. And when you look at that, you can see the difference between what the substitution effect has between the CPIU, which in fiscal year 24 would be 2.61. But because of the substitution effect, people wanting to save money, the actual inflation for the goods they end up buying when they substitute is much lower. Right? So that makes a little bit more sense to use.
Can you do that at the middle school? Where's
I'm
that
not
happening
gonna
at the
go.
middle school?
You're going to be sitting in that school with no paper.
I don't know. It looks like you find a
No
different way.
food.
This is a widely accepted concept. It's, again, published and all that kind of stuff. So the weighting, the 15% and the 60 and the 25 is a bit arbitrary. Okay, so the way I came up with it, and we could monkey around with the numbers, and I'm happy to do that. Say, look, at the end of the day, maybe we give 25% weighting to ability to pay, or right? That's the real personal income growth. How much is the town's income?
Oh, so talk about that. So where did you get that from?
Again,
What does that
Congressional
mean?
Budget Office.
Well, what does it mean?
It's growth in personal income from wages, dividends, and everything else combined.
For the whole country?
For the whole country. None of this is, these projections are not available down to the metropolitan area, right?
Okay.
Again, that's a weakness of all this, but at the end of the day, we're not trying to be perfect. It's impossible to be perfect.
So does that include what's in the second bucket already? Is that?
No, they're
That's
two
the
different
employer
approaches. That's
cost?
the employer cost.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
Okay,
That's
okay,
exactly
okay.
right. So my point was, if you think about the two divisions, the first two lines are what should the budgets be held
Yeah.
to? And when you think about what the budget should be held to, you said, okay, well, if we're going to allocate 25% as ability to pay, take the remaining 75% and split it according to the distribution of labor and goods. And it happens to be about 80-20.
And if you
in
would,
all three. So I just took 80-20, split and to the 75%, and that's how I came up with that.
okay. And if you wanted to do the kind of the other method where you'd say, this is what you might expect costs to rise in the budgets, you would take the first two categories.
That's right.
And you might compare it to, as opposed
The
to
third one.
blending it
Yes, and you'll
to.
see that's approach 3.
Okay.
So you'll see that in a minute, okay?
Except that I think the difference is that Parashars separated out the cost increases associated with wages, which is 75% of our budget. When you get, talk about the schools.
Oh, yeah.
Schools
Yeah.
and the
Oh, yeah,
towns.
no,
It's
you would
80% of
include
the
it.
budget.
It's
So
80%
instead
of the budget.
just calling it
Yeah.
CPI, which is consumer price, he's dropped in an increased number, very honestly, that reflects
Yeah.
salaries, which is.
Trying to be realistic of what
Right.
we
No,
should expect.
Yeah, right.
absolutely.
Right? So we shouldn't have false expectations by setting a low SGR, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. mhm.
So this one, it's in my opinion, so this is one number, relatively easy to explain, but it's one number, right? Now, if we go to the next slide, there's two numbers. Same set of indices, but you can say, hey, if you want level service growth, right? It's the 3.42 going down to 2.75. The weighting now here is 80-20 because you're focused only on the budgets.
Right.
And you can say, hey, if you want level service growth, this is kind of what we should aim for, right? On the other hand, our ability to pay our personal income growth is at about 2.54. So somewhere in the middle, maybe we should come, but it does provide two different guardrails.
I like that one.
So those are the three options. I put it out there. Maybe we can have a discussion. What I'd like to do, if possible, Peggy, if we can decide today, I would actually like to put it into the memos for information so that the town and the schools have some sense of kind of what we're expecting, what these guardrails are as they develop their budgets for next year.
So would you propose approach number 3?
No, he
I
proposed two.
proposed 2,
He
but I'm
proposed
open to
two.
3. I'm fine with either one. It's a matter of which one is easier to explain, and
Yeah. Well, I
fine with
like,
either one,
I
actually.
like having the two different factors. So I like, since the first in approach 3.
Go to the next slide, because I have all 3 of them. I put one with all 3. Oh, yeah, I considered a couple others, but this has all 3 together.
He's not on the right
Okay.
slide yet.
You also
Are they all
had
there?
approach-
Okay,
Yeah, they're
yeah,
all
they're all
there,
there. Oh,
right?
yeah,
You
okay.
had an approach 2B as well, where you just gave 33%
Yeah.
Right.
to each of those.
That's, yeah, we can monkey around with the weights, as I said,
Yeah.
and they do change, but the good thing about approach 3 is you don't have to worry about weights. Because the 80/20 is known.
Exactly.
That's known.
It links
And
into
then
what we
you
know.
you're not being arbitrary and it's
Exactly.
direct. So
It
I'm
doesn't
fine with
muddy
that.
it up
I'm
a
fine
little
with
bit.
3 too.
That's what I like about it, because we know that's our real mix of labor costs in the budget, so.
It's not judgmental.
Yes,
Yeah.
there's no subjectivity.
But we don't lose it by keeping so we have one set of measures, this is what we think costs go up, and oh, by the way, this is what people can afford, so we're somewhere in the middle.
Right.
Yeah.
I kind of like it.
No, I think these proposals are huge improvements. Huge improvements, because they acknowledge the fact that the employment cost is the big driver. And which the other formulation just ignored. So I think, whichever approach we go with, the basic structure you're proposing is a massive improvement. And I really, now that I really understand it, having heard you explain it, I think agree with Chris. I like approach number 3.
What we can try it, right? I mean, so if we, it looks reasonable to me when I look at it now. Again, this is a national average. It's, not local. There can be differences on local, but it's not it's directionally correct, I would think. So I like it because it gives us another thing to think about, and we've been searching for that. So I kind of like it. I kind of like
So
that
what
one.
we would do in essence is revise the concept of SGR, and you could say, that could be the ability to pay. Well, I just use those terms, whatever we want.
Let's call that real personal income, which is.
That's what it is.
That's the data you've collected.
Yes, that's what it is.
I think it's much.
That's perfectly fine, yeah.
I don't want to put ability to pay. I think.
That was again
it was
approximate, but that's fine.
Yeah.
And then the other one, level service.
Option 3 up there. So
I'm sorry?
Would you put option 3?
It's
on
right
the
there.
bottom.
It's the bottom one.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. It's
I
hard
wanted to
see.
just have one slide that compares
It's
all
right
three.
there, yeah.
So what we would then do is ask in our initial guideline letter, I guess, to present budgets, and we're.
Well, we just tell them.
We
just tell them, Peggy.
We're looking at 3.7
Yeah, we just give them a
tops
data
and
point. Yeah.
somewhere
Yeah,
between
that-
2.5 and 2.7.
Yeah.
3.7.
That's exactly right.
Right. I think that's actually really useful.
Who have you voted with
Socialize
this?
this?
Yeah,
Socialize? Nobody.
No, okay, no, I didn't know. I didn't know if Bob or.
No, so actually I sent it to Ray because you had raised, I think, in the last meeting, this concept of 2 guardrails, and I think someone else did too. And so I think I put that in there, so that was good.
Right.
I just like the idea that, first of all, that last year's numbers don't affect the next 5 years, because that's, doesn't sound like it makes sense here. And this is a huge, I agree with Lois.
Can't hear you.
Was your mic on?
Is your mic on? Is the little green light on?
It's on, it was on.
Yeah, you have to speak,
Yeah.
need to
Here?
speak directly into it.
Speak loud.
Oh, one of them didn't work last
Yeah,
time.
we had a problem
I'm so
last.
shy anyway. I think it's a huge improvement. I agree with Lois. I think that, they're just leaving out the impact of last year's numbers for 5 years is a big improvement, and maybe we'll refine it further from here, but I think this is a huge step forward.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
think we should adopt it, sometime yesterday.
Okay.
I think Matt had a comment.
There's a
Yeah,
couple
we've
folks
also
on there.
got
Sorry.
Greg and Amber. So,
Sorry.
We'll start with our senior member. That will be Matt. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I'm a select board member, not a finance committee
Boss.
member, but what I would just mention is that as a sanity check, I looked at the census.gov data for Concord for median household income. And I feel like that really is the empirical sustainable growth, what the holding property taxes to a percentage somehow of the median household income. And the CAGR for that from 2010 through 2020 is 2.3%.
So it's not that different.
So that's historical, that's backward looking. And there is a bump in the last year. So, maybe going forward, it's a higher rate. But I also know that our property taxes are going to be going up at a higher rate than that too. So it's
What was
just
the
a
source of
sanity
that?
check.
That was clear.
It's census.gov.
Census.gov,
And
okay.
they have a data set for median household income that they run at town level. It's the American Community Survey. So
The
Any
challenge,
preference
the
for
challenge,
one?
the challenge is they don't do projections.
Oh,
Right?
okay.
And so
okay.
then you're sitting
right,
around
right.
thinking, what should it be at?
Good
And
point. Yep,
who-
yeah.
What was the
They don't
challenge?
project, it's a
but-
historical.
But it's not a bad
It's a sanity check,
It's a
is
back
the way I
check.
look
Sure.
at it.
No, I'm just saying, like, for us,
I
ourselves,
understand.
we could say, hey,
Yeah.
let's
What is
keep looking
sustainable, I
at it. to
think,
see
is
how-
ultimately a
and also
percentage of
this,
income.
yeah.
Well, it wouldn't be part of the SGR, but it would be a way for us to sanity check it. You could say, hey, how does it look? It's not a
Greg?
bad idea.
Greg,
Yeah, can you go to the approach 3 slide in a little bit more detail? Yeah, so for the real personal income, you're literally saying that's the SGR for ability to pay. I just wanted to get a clarification on why those 2 lines are exactly the same. You're literally using that as.
Well,
Yeah.
so, yeah, so that was a mistake. I sent out a new version last night, and I think a new version was put in the packet this morning, Greg. I'm sorry.
yeah.
Okay, I did.
Version up.
Yeah, you had the right version.
You had the right version up, Bob. It was a mistake. It was a cut and paste error on my part, Greg.
Okay.
You can see
So
the Zoom screen, the correct version was up on Zoom.
the one that, I was looking at the one on Zoom and they've matched.
Yeah.
I hope not.
Yeah, the one in Zoom matched. That's why I was asking the question.
Which
Oh, it
one?
does, yeah.
I'm sorry. Yes, that should match completely because in essence, you're saying that the SGR is going to be real personal income growth. In other words, there's no weighting to it. Is that
Okay.
Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it totally makes, I wanted to confirm that was
Yes.
intended. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Amherst?
Yeah, so Parashar, on your comparative slide number 11.
Page
The,
11?
Page 11. Scroll forward a little bit. 11. Yep.
yeah, if I understand correctly, no, you
That.
went. That one, stop.
Okay,
Yeah,
right.
if I understand approach 3 correctly, level services rate is based on Concord local data, or maybe not Concord, it's local data. SGR ability to pay is based on national data.
No. So if you go, let's just go back to approach 3 for a minute.
Yeah,
The
that's where I'm
levels,
looking.
yeah. So all of the indices are based on national numbers because nobody does projections down at the local level. Okay, so
They-
it's a downside to all of this.
Just, they can go backwards and collect data and show it, which is what Matt just said.
Yeah, census
But
does
that's
that.
not
but
gonna.
It's not
do
going
the
to help us going
analysis to
forward.
Project it. And that's
Exactly.
really
That's
what the
so-
difference here is.
Exactly. So the indices, the metrics, change CPI, employment cost index are national. The Concord specific is the 20%, 80% weighting. That reflects what the schools and the towns projected last year off of their 5-year cost estimates of their mix of dollars for labor versus goods and services. It's like 80, it was actually like 81%, I think, or 82, and I just.
Right.
Is-
That's my point. So the level services rate reflects something which is Concord specific, but your ability to pay does not reflect anything which is Concord specific.
I agree. It's just very different. It's impossible to get something.
Yeah, so for that reason, I think we should not provide those 2 guardrails because you immediately bring up the question, well, what's the difference between these 2 numbers? We should pick one set of numbers, not 2.
Well, so that's fine. I
So
mean,
then you would Parashar originally recommended approach number 2, where the SGR for.
I think this is
fiscal year
the
24 is 3.42.
well, but Amrith, I will say all 3 of these are national numbers anyway, and the inherent weighting is a bit Concord specific. So that's going to be a flaw in anything we do. Period. Even the current SGR methodology, the only thing that was Concord specific was a 12-year historical look back, and that was Metro, Boston. The future projection, the yield bill is national. So I'm not sure I would put a lot of weight into trying to get Concord specific because at the end of the day, frankly, these are more guardrails and maybe we're off by 0.5 percentage here and 1% there, but directionally in the overall trend, we're probably not that far away.
So
Don't let the perfect be.
in order to move this along, Parashar, thank you for doing this. It's a huge improvement. I agree with that. I'd love to get a sense of the committee on whether you'd rather issue a single number, which is approach number 2, or a pair of numbers, a high-low, which is approach 3. Is that oversimplifying?
I mean, just
kind
the
of
para
good.
number,
Sure.
the para numbers, I don't view that as high and low. I view that as two
different
different
things.
metrics for two different things.
That's
fact
that's my concern, Parashar.
I
If
think
it-
that's confusing. Because I would have viewed it as a high-low number.
You can view it that way, but I guess I would call the first one, if you want level services, that's the first one. And oh, by the way, in general, people's personal income growth is projected to be X. It's not Concord specific, I get that. But in essence, this is kind of what's happening. And they're two different sort of objectives, right?
Yeah, you could just reframe the SGR as the first piece, the level services rate number. And then we could simply have to ourselves, we could know we know what the real personal income is growing at. In other words, you don't have to name that the SGR.
Oh,
if
well,
you
you
wanted
know,
to.
I think
I
what
like
you can
it,
do,
but-
I think you can present it at the
Yeah.
same time as you present the level services rate as the SGR, but
Yeah.
make it clear that that level services rate is exceeding the
Yes,
predicted
yes, exactly.
level
Right.
of
It's
There you go.
increase, so people
Right.
understand
Yeah,
Yes.
that things are going to be a reach
yeah,
and that they may have to make some choices.
right.
That's right.
And
Right.
that's why I like the two
The two.
numbers,
Two separate.
because
Yeah.
it reinforces what you were talking about with the middle school, the tension.
Yep.
It reminds people that they have to be aware that if they want certain things, there are costs associated with, and where we're coming out is, if you want the same level of service we have, you have to spend beyond what your income growth is.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah, it puts it in context.
Yeah,
I think
that's
that's
why I
really
like
good.
We should provide two.
Yeah, okay, good.
I'd like to hear just briefly from everybody so we can give Parashar some direction. D. Undecided. Okay, Ray.
At this point in time, I liked the approach 2, but I was undecided about how to structure the percentages. You had 2 options. On one of the charts I saw, we had a couple of different options. I do like having a range. I know we only can have one number that we're going to use at a certain point in time.
Well, okay, let me just interrupt, Dee. I don't think we should be bound by whatever they did in the past of only having one number. I was only describing what they did in the past. We can redo it, in my opinion. We should.
I think Lois's description is 3.71 is our level services base, and it's no judgment there because we've taken 20% goods and services, 80% salaries and wages, and health insurance, I assume, is all in that number. And then secondly, we would say, however, you should be aware that based on national numbers, not just not Concord specific, real personal income has increased at 2.54%. So our costs, even at level services, are growing faster than that. Now, I bet most household incomes have increased more than that, because if our salaries and wages have, then, but I think that's, Lois, that's how you explain
So
it.
I think the understanding of that as an explanation is great. I guess my concern is, are we looking at using level service rate, or are we looking at using the SGR?
Right.
Okay, so that to me is why I like having the 2 numbers, so we get to decide that. And I'm guessing the way people are, or I'm thinking the way people are responding, that we're going with a level service rate percentage.
I think we're going with both, meaning, again,
I think because you called it SGR on the second.
When we go to figure out, the percentage, we
let's-
have a percentage. So which one are we going with?
Okay, we have a few people online, a few sentences each, because I'd like to move on, and then we're going to give Parashar some direction for the next step. Brian.
So I support number 3. I think that I appreciated Lois's sort of articulation of this, and I think part of my initial confusion, and Peggy, I also appreciated your Well, I appreciated you commenting on your confusion a little bit on the high-low. I think what confused me a little bit is this idea of guardrail. And it might confuse other townsfolk around guardrails, because when you think guardrail, my instinct was to think high-low as well, and then meet kind of somewhere in the middle. This is not a guardrail per se. These are two metrics that really kind of help you evaluate and triangulate in on a specific value that we want to arrive at. And so I think these two data points add value, but they shouldn't be viewed as a guardrail per se. And if we think about it in that context, I think number 3 is actually a really solid way to go. It doesn't have the level of precision here. I think we don't need to spend an enormous amount of time to Parishar's point around this, because we're just not going to have it. And I think that this does a very good job. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. Don?
Yeah, I echo that. I agree. I'd also say that the concept of guardrail is a little misleading. Again, these are not high and lows. I think that the great benefit is to Chris's earlier point about the healthy tension that belongs in any committee when discussing the unlimited wants. And for Matt, for you to take this to the select board to understand that level services means an increasing claim on the income of the citizens. Simply providing level services means that, and perhaps that will increase the awareness of the impacts of the sort of the dual impact of all the good that we want to be able to do has another impact, which is at increasing claim on the incomes. It's unfortunate that the level services rate is above the income rate, but it is the reality. And Parashar, I really applaud you for latching on to the employment cost index, because that's definitely the right metric in my mind for us to be using. Now, if that becomes if the town as a whole, if we want to recommend to the town that we believe the citizens should pay an increasing percentage of income to support level services, then the level services rate becomes the guideline. If we want to recommend to the town that we don't increase the burden, then the ability to pay the SGR becomes our single number.
Real personal income.
Yeah. Yep. Thanks.
Not ability to pay. We're not going there. Okay, so Parashar, I think you've got guidance.
Approach 3 is what we're going with.
Why
We'll
don't
change the verbiage.
Yep.
No guardrails, and it's real personal income. I like the setup of this is the level service number, and oh, by the way, this is the growth in national projection. So we'll word it that way
Okay.
in the letter that goes out in our
Maybe
report.
a footnote as to Matt's metric for historic
Yeah.
record in Concord.
And I think it'll,
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think it.
I think it remains to be seen how we will use these two numbers going forward, but I think having both of them there is very, very important.
Yeah, and so
Dynamic that we're dealing with, talking about effect on taxpayers, and that's what we're looking at. It's very nice to be able to share that with
Yep.
the bodies we're dealing with.
Yep,
Okay,
good.
thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Great.
Thank you, Parashar. Okay, it's 10 after 9. And we are going to talk about Christopher Heights, Ray and Chris.
This is. Based on my own quick research, I did it wrong. You let me know, but
Louis, we can't hear you. Do you want to get the microphone closer to you, please?
I'm sorry.
Chris.
Sorry, it's Chris.
Oh, Chris.
Okay, sorry, Amrith, it was off. Thank you for telling me. So the Christopher Heights at Junction Village is a parcel of land, or it's a development on a parcel of land, a 12-acre parcel of land that the state gave to CHDC in Concord in 2013, and it's bordered by MCI Concord and the Assabet River. The land is restricted for affordable housing and open space. And after a couple years and different opportunities, in I believe 2017, a developer, Grantham, was selected to develop an 83-unit assisted living facility on the site. The rental units within that facility would qualify as affordable housing. So out of the 83, 17 units would be at less than 30% average median income. 26 units would be at 60% average median income, affordable to that level, and 40 units would be at 150% of AMI, which is considered Concord affordable. So that's how the breakout is of the rentals for these properties. It's how it's meant to be structured. And it was described that adding these units would keep Concord above the 10% Reg 40B limit. So we all know what that is, right? Okay, so that's when we started this in 2017. At that time, the project estimate was around 17.3 million, something like that. And Concord's contribution to that, there was some costs. So there's about $200,000 in I'll call feasibility study costs, or sort of costs to get the thing going. About half of that has been spent. In addition, there were commitments of $1 million in free cash and $1 million from CPC. The CPC component was over 3 years, but it totaled $1 million. The rest of the funding would come from the state. So the state applications were made to the state, and I believe there's 10+ million or so that's been approved for the project. The developer would also have some bank loans and some private equity. So one of the ways that this is funded is through the sale of low-income tax credits, which come with the property. The developer committed at that time in 2017 that there wouldn't be no further funding requests from Concord above that 2 million plus the 200 grand in costs. Okay, so that was 2017. In 2019, the project now costs 20 million. And at this time, the developer requested property tax relief for 20 years, a certain percentage of the relief by lowering the assessed value on the property. And that relief was valued at 2.65 million. There was quite a debate over this at the town. It centered on whether we should continue with developer, given that there was another fund request, despite the earlier promise that there would be none. Some viewed a lack of transparency on the developer's financials, not understanding what their skin was in the game here. And this tactic of kind of threatening to kill the project if this secondary level of funding from Concord was not forthcoming. On the other side, there were folks who said this abatement on the taxes was contemplated at the outset, and those who desire affordable housing units were very supportive of it because they didn't want to delay any further. There had already been many years between 2013 and 2019 waiting for this project to be developed. And there was also the concern about falling below 40B. So it was quite a bit of back and forth at a town meeting about it. The 2020 town meeting did approve this, what they call TIF agreement. That's the tax agreement. It was not at the requested level. It was up to 15 years. And it was capped at 2 million. So the original request was 20 years for about 2.65 million. So it was agreed to do it. However, that agreement again stated that developers shall not seek any type of additional direct or indirect financial support of any kind from the town for this project. So that was in 2020. In 2022, the town asked for a CPC allocation of $250,000 to improve open space surrounding the facility. So that's not a request from the developer. That's town saying, oh, we're going to make the grass and land around it a little better. So there's another $250 that's been assigned from CPC more recently. And then most recently, the project cost has been re-estimated at 28 million. So we started out at 17.3. We are now at 28 million on this project. The developer is seeking additional state funding, so beyond the 10 million that's already been approved. And he has now asked to connect the facility to town sewer in order to reduce the project cost by 1.3 million. The project assumed the developer would be building a septic system on site. So he's saying now, I'd like to connect to town sewer in order to avoid this 1.3 million in cost. The estimated cost to Concord to connect the facility to the sewer and this is very early stage, this is all very new information, is about 850,000. But this is, again, another fund request from the developer, despite the fact that they have told us twice that they are not going to ask for it. So if you added all that together, so Concord would be at around 5.3 million on this project. We don't know, it's not clear what the developer's investment is in the project. The way this works, it's not, so far I haven't seen a great transparency on the project. I did see P&Ls. It looks like, and I haven't seen it at 28 million, but at the 20 million level, they were operating profit, there was operating profit beginning in year one, and he was cash flow positive in year one. So this guy gets to run a facility that's essentially paid for by a lot of other folks, including money put in from the town. However, so it still does help us get to the 40B. So my understanding is the housing production plan is in process. They haven't finished it, but their estimate is that without this, we would be 8 to 20 below the 10%, 8 to 20 units below the 10% required by 40B. So we still have that issue. The folks on the affordable housing folks in town have been looking at this. They have looked at other options. They look to see are there other things that we could easily do that would cover that 8 to 20 units. My understanding is they have not found anything that looks likely to be able to do. So there still is concern that if we were to say no to this, that perhaps we would have to go back to the drawing board, because the assumption is if we say no, the project is killed. So that's the issue there. So the affordable housing folks in town have expressed support for continuing the project. They've expressed it to the select board. The select board is simply beginning a review of this, so they're at the beginning stages of it. The issue on the sewer hasn't yet been researched either, but there are questions. So the select board met with Alan Carthgate from DPW on Monday to talk about it. And there's a couple of issues that he raised. So one, just physical, whether the pipes along that strip of road, which is a residential area, would actually be able to handle the capacity for a 12,000 gallon a day a sewage system. And secondly, there is, and I'm going to mess this up, there's I want to call it a license, but that's not the right word. There's some sort of a sewer management plan that I think we file with the state, and that plan would need to be requested to increase the capacity to do this, and it's unclear that we would do it. And I think thirdly, there were parcels in town are assigned, were reviewed and assigned an ability to join the sewer or not. This parcel is not approved to have sewer connection. So if we do it, are there others in town who would say, well, wait a minute, now I want a sewer connection because why was this given? My parcel was also in that. So there's a lot of questions around it. But so it was controversial. I think what we should do is sort of follow what the select board discussion is as they get more information. They asked 7 or so questions of information that they wanted to know. And let's see where it goes. But I wanted you to know that this is something that's happening. And it was something that, with even FinCom, it was controversial. Our votes were not consensus on this at all. So,
are the rental units in this project affordable in perpetuity, unlike a 40B, which is 30 years?
I don't know. I don't know the answer.
I mean,
I can try and find out. You want to try and find out, Ray?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to whether they're in perpetuity.
I know that
Liz
this.
Rust from
I can, can I, hi, Liz Rust.
Hi.
I'm tuning in just for questions like this that I can help you with it. Yes, these are in perpetuity.
Well, that's a big difference than compared to a 40B.
40Bs now are in perpetuity as well.
Is that right?
Mhm.
Excellent. Okay. I used to think 30 years was a long time.
Yeah.
Until you turn 30.
I started
Liz?
working in town for 30 years.
Liz, this is Don Kupka, and just for the minutes, could you introduce yourself?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm Liz Rust. I'm the director of the Regional Housing Services Office and affordable housing consultant to the town.
Thank you.
Did I get anything wrong, Liz? How did I do?
I thought that was excellent.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah, one thing that I understood was that the trust, the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust, said they're in support of this, and they do have some money. I don't know how much. I mean, it was $500,000 last time I looked, last time I saw a sheet from them. But, you know, Keith Bergman can perhaps answer, you know, if they're in support of it, how much money do they have available to put into it? And that would be before taxpayer impact.
So I think I can answer that as well, Ray. So they have just over $1 million. And yeah, they have just over $1 million. They got $500,000 just this July from last town meeting.
Right.
Okay.
So the other thing I might mention is the timing of this, that the decision from the town would need to be made by the middle of September. And that relates to the state's funding cycle for this, for going for these additional funds. The state's going to be, there are a number of projects that the state is looking at that have had increased costs due to COVID. That the projects were all, they all penciled out and everything before COVID, and then they didn't close, and then everything really changed. And that's where the difference of $8 million came. Really, it's all in construction. The state is pumping their state ARPA funds into projects that meet this kind of, that are in this kind of situation. And the state has asked that that municipalities also contribute to the post-COVID increases.
No.
So that's where this is coming from.
Right. Hey, Liz, so do we know whether the Grantham Group, would they apply for, I think the grants can be up to 7 million, is that correct? Is that how it works?
Yeah, they're gonna, there's a state funding round that they will issue the notice of funding availability in September, and that Grantham would apply to that, and they're going to make the ARPA funds available through that funding round, and they will apply all again for all of the state subsidies and the low-income housing tax credits, and just like they did 3 years ago. So it's a brand new funding round.
Okay, so do we know that it's possible for them to close the remaining gap through the state funding?
Not without the town funds.
Right, but assume that the town went forward. Or do we think that there?
What is the ask?
Yeah, what is his ask to the, well, it's the 850 or 1.3 million if you can't do the sewer connection, right? I assume. It's somewhere between 850 and 1.3 million.
So what he's asking from the town
Yeah.
is the
Ask from the
sewer.
town, but you're asking about what's the ask from the.
I'm asking what the state ask is, because I'm trying to find out what happens if they don't get the money from the state. Are they going to come back?
I think that's a complicated question. We do have, the developer did provide their the details underneath their $28 million budget, and we'll send those out soon. And so if the state does not fund the whole project, I think that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
I don't know what the next step is after that.
Okay, thank you.
It feels like, though I can't be certain, but it feels like that this is really the end.
Okay.
I think everyone's a little tired of this, right?
Liz, you said that the state is not likely to provide additional funds unless they see the town.
Yes, they have said that verbally.
Right.
And so actually, one of the immediate next step is really to schedule a meeting with the associate director of DHCD and members of the town, so that they could hear that from DHCD directly.
Right, and I think, I mean, I don't know whether they need to see new funding, Liz, or I mean, we're 5 million in.
Well, I don't know about 5 million.
4 million in. So we're pretty well in, right? We've already made it.
Well, I think that they wouldn't count the TIF as the same. Those are sort of different buckets, right? One is construction subsidy versus tax reduction in taxes, right? So I think
That's
that they
real
would look
money.
at it.
That's
money
cash.
to the town, right? Yeah.
I think they would just look at those as two different buckets of money, right? From an accounting and how you look at the project. But, and that's part of the conversation with DHCD. So they have other projects coming in and they're looking for, though, specifically what I heard was that they're looking for towns to contribute to the post-COVID gaps. And they don't want the state and all their funds being the only ones to deal with the increase in construction.
Okay, Dee.
So one of the things, Chris, you had a really great synopsis of everything that's been going on. One of the points, that was brought up at the select board meeting by Alan Cathcart was that if in fact they were able to, they'd have to change the pipe coming over. And if they were able to construct it, and we're talking, they don't have a number yet. They haven't done any estimates. The 850,000 was just kind of thrown out there. But one thing that everybody needs to know is that that is an enterprise fund. And so only 1/3 of the population is on sewer. And so that cost would be the burden, that burden would be applied to 1/3 of the population.
Right, he did
in
say
the
that,
town.
right, that's a good point. Yeah.
Through rate.
But that's where I think that's the sewer improvement fee goes into that enterprise fund to mitigate that impact, right?
Right.
To pay for the construction.
No, so the $800,000, 500 of that is the sewer improvement fee that goes into that enterprise fund. So
he
to
would
address
forego
that. And then the rest of that was because it was not understood that the pipes needed to be enhanced. And so the 300,000 was estimated to be just the construction to get to the pipe. And one of the other things, just to clarify that I think that you mentioned, Christine, was that this parcel wasn't identified on the master plan because this parcel was created in 2013. And I think the master plan goes back well before that. So this was just created or given, cleaved off from the Department of Corrections in 2013. So, I mean, it's right on Winthrop Street. It has a Winthrop Street address and Winthrop Street is on the sewer. So it's very close, but it's not a parcel that is identified, but all of its neighbors have sewer.
So did I hear from Chris, so we're talking about 160, I can't remember, it's either 16,000 or 160,000. I can't do the math in my head. I get the decimal point in the wrong place, but would we have to modify our wastewater permit at the plant where, for the discharge?
I don't know that. I don't know that answer. So they're looking into that. And it could be that hooking into the sewer isn't the best way to fill the gap for the project.
Right.
Maybe it's more complicated and it's too complicated and it's not possible. That might be entirely what happens. It was just an idea of how the town could address the project gap and provide some service to the project without, anyway, it was just an idea.
Can I ask a question? Go ahead.
Parashar was next, then Brian.
So how
Brian,
about,
your hand is harder to see in that color. If you want to switch it to yellow, I'd love that.
I'm not sure how to do that. How much actual sunk costs has the town put in?
Not much, about 100 grand.
Okay, so that's thinking. Now, the second question, what is the real consequence if we just say no to this right now? I understand that the 340B number, we're below the 340B number, but does that mean there are one or more developers that we are aware of waiting in the wing to come in and propose affordable housing under 340B, or is there time for us to go scrounge up some units?
I'm sorry, Liz can answer that probably better than I can. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it depends a little bit on what the number is. We have to really wait for the census. If it's 7, it's one thing. If it's 20, it's another. It would be, you could maybe scrounge up 7 units in a couple of years. You couldn't scrounge up 20 units in a couple of years. It will be some number of years of being below the 10%. So, and Concord's a very desirable community. So, I'd like to think of it as, or one example would be, the 1440 Main Street in West Concord. If Concord was below 10%, that would have been really a very different project in terms of a 40B.
Okay, and my last
project is
question,
that?
sorry.
I don't know what it is, no.
What project is that, Liz?
1440.
It's it had a lot of signs, people protesting it. Sorry, so it like by Highland Road there on.
Oh, okay, yes, yep, okay.
Yep, that one, so that project, as it was presented, was too dense for what people wanted. But as a 40B, it would have been a much denser project.
And then my last question leading up to this. If we say no, we fall below,
Mhm.
can we turn around and just convert the current project into 340B?
40B.
The CHCC owns the land, so it's really up to them, and they've been working on this for 10 years. So I don't really know what their thoughts are going to be of what to do with the land.
Okay, thank you.
Brian, did you have you had your hand up?
Yeah, I just actually wanted to ask a question. Maybe Liz is the right person. Ray, maybe it's you. I'm not quite sure, but this has been, there have been 2 memorandums of understanding. They've signed them. They've basically said we won't come back. They've come back. So that's not a credible, that's no longer credible. So the question is, and maybe I'm just thinking about this the wrong way. Did you say that there were 10 units, 8 to 10 units, Chris?
83.
No, but
No,
that are
8 to
as
20.
affordable.
Potentially, all of them are affordable.
All of them are affordable.
They're
Okay.
They're at different levels of income affordable, right? So there's some that are, if you're less than 30% of AMI, less than 60%, or 150%, which is what they call Concord affordable. So depends,
Okay.
but they're all tagged as affordable.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
And they're all off the list now. None of them are on the SHI now, as I understand it. Is that right?
That's correct.
Right. You can't put it on until I think it's been permitted, right?
Right.
Well, it's been permitted. It's the building permits now. So they've received their zoning permit, their 40B permit.
Oh, that was my other question. So if a developer, let's say we go beneath and someone does decide to come to us, is it as simple as, well, you're under 10%, so I can do what I want? Or wouldn't they have to go through zoning here anyway?
They would have to go through the zoning board, but under 40B, you can't deny, or you have less ability to deny based on density and others, local zoning rules.
But I think based on what we've heard tonight, Liz, we could probably deny based on sewer. And they would have to build their own package treatment plant over there.
Well, it depends on the size. Maybe it'd be a small thing. I do know someone mentioned that there's case study or case law now where, and I'm not sure exactly where it was, where a town denied the project from connecting to the sewer, and they took that up to the Housing Appeals Committee, and the town was required to allow them to connect.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Okay, well, I think we know where our bread is buttered here. And it sounds like it's going to be developing, no pun intended, fairly rapidly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the questions would be, what is the real difference between qualifying for 40B and not, or having a safe harbor and not having a safe harbor? And is that something that we should ask the Planning Commission to?
I think,
I don't know.
I think I would leave that to the select board.
I think
and the
they'll ask
planning
those
board.
questions, yeah.
I can guarantee you Marcia would know that answer if Liz doesn't, or Elizabeth Hughes would know that answer.
What's the question?
How fast, if we were vulnerable to 8 to 20 units of affordable housing, how fast would that materialize if this project does not?
Oh, there are definitely people who are watching. In
Okay.
fact, there was a developer who had an option on some land who was looking to build 200 units and was waiting for the town to fall below 10%. That particular deal fell through. I'm not sure exactly why, but people hear that, they see that. As I say, Concord's a very desirable, town, and there is land that people are disposing of, like a little bit here, there, whatever, I don't know. So it can happen and you'll have some notice, but still it'll happen pretty quickly.
The difference, for those that don't follow this, in a 40B, only 25% of the units need to be affordable. So if someone wants to build 200, they're getting full market rate for 150 units affordable. I'm Liz, so happy to hear it's in perpetuity now.
Right. So that's like at the Prescott.
So they'll stay, but
so the projects, the 40B projects in town are the Prescott, Warner Woods. Those are the large 40B projects in town.
And the Muse.
Yeah, well, that's the Prescott now. They changed their name.
Okay, they changed the name.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that one rolls off. God help us. Anyway.
But it doesn't, right? That's in.
No, that's in perpetuity, that one.
That one is it? It's excellent.
Okay.
That's really good news. Okay.
So I'll just keep following along with what the select board's doing, and I'll keep you up to date. And if said it could move fast or slow, so it sounds like they're gonna have to do something by middle of September, so I'll keep you informed.
Okay.
Yeah, Don has.
Oh, I'm sorry, Don.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to add to that. I'm the liaison to the planning board, and at the last planning board meeting, Elizabeth Hughes said that we will most likely no longer be conforming after the next census. She said we will fall under the 10%, and it was really relevant because there was a large discussion of a proposed housing development on the Sudbury line, and in Concord, Concord's portion of that parcel will be 6 units of housing, and it's 4 units of McMansions, really very large houses, and then a duplex of 2,700 square feet per unit, and the rest of the land is all affordable housing within Sudbury, and the planning board asked, gee, why couldn't we get affordable housing here? And the developer, it was a very awkward moment. If you go to the Sudbury Town website, the Sudbury Town manager touts the cooperation that Concord has given in this project. It's the first and only, it says MGL Chapter 40R housing development. It will put Sudbury over the state mandated 10% affordable housing threshold until 2030 or beyond. He thanks all of the town boards and committees and staff and the town of Concord for all of our collaboration on this. Clearly, our planning board didn't know this, and if we had requested that our portion be affordable, I wonder if there's so much land in Concord there, if we couldn't have had 40 or 50 units. That's just speculating on my part, but I wonder, Liz, if you're still on, if you have any background on this. It's called the Coldbrook Crossing in Sudbury, or the Old Quarry, Malone property.
I do. It was a town-owned parcel. They developed it as part of a land swap arrangement with the developer, who was going to build a large 40B in the center of Sudbury, where all the churches are. So Sudbury opted to get that land and give them this land, and it's a large development. It has an apartment rental piece of it that has the affordable units, and it has a lot of age-restricted condominiums that are back in there. And I know that on the Concord side, there was just a handful of homes built there, or under construction probably now, right?
No, it's before our planning board for approval, but any idea why we weren't at the table to influence, to say, well, we would like to have affordable housing there as well?
I know that there were some discussions between the planning department and the Sudbury folks way back a couple of years ago. Yeah.
You know what, I'm going to move this along. I think we have, we know where, as I said, our bread is buttered and what we're looking for and keeping our eyes on. But thank you, Chris and Ray and Liz, really for your input. That is very, very helpful. Any public comments? Okay, hearing none. A motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
I was-
Roll call, roll call. Okay, Ray,
Yes.
Suresh,
Yes.
Peggy, yes. Eric, did you show up?
No. Eric's not here.
Greg,
Yes.
Amrith,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Dee,
Yes.
Parashar,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Lois.
Yes.
Okay, meeting is adjourned, and whoever recommended putting the list of FinCom members on every agenda, I want to thank you very much. Lois, yay.
Me.
Okay, and Don, you were the scribe tonight?
Yes.
Okay, well then you and Lois can do your business, and Amrith, I'll take a look at what you sent out in terms of detail.
Yeah, I will too, Amrit.
Okay, thank you.
Right, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.